Well, just throw it to me. Throw the ball.
Okay, the ball is dribbling.
Oh my
I have
God.
it. I have it in both of my hands.
My
I'm
eyes
making
are
eye
darting.
contact at you. Making eye
Oh my
contact at
God.
you.
I want it. I
I'm
need the
throwing the
ball.
ball.
I
Tossing the
need the
ball.
ball, Daniel. Give me the ball.
Ball is tossed.
Yes, I have the ball now. God bless. Hello, everyone. It is Michelle Perez. I am joined with my buddy Jake, my buddy Ruben, and Ultra Buddy. There's no more buddy than Eliza Gager,
That's right.
and uh, a little bit of house cleaning on our end. We've kind of had a bit of a lot of life shit happen within the current month. Sort of the gap between our unstuck in time and timeliness is now closing rapidly. In as much as our recording schedule and life events, I'm now in a new apartment, having just massively dodged some big time bullshit and sailed on to victory. Jake watched a dog, and the dog was adorable.
True.
And we didn't
That's
want
right.
to record a shitty recording 1 week, so here we are now. And good Lord, it's been wild, sort of the premise of our show being about doing independent work and, staking out your own claim and what have you. And I've been definitely doing that. I now work at a Thai place, of all places, and it's been really lovely. I got some drinks with my coworkers after a particularly hard shift, and I've got to say, just doing an odd dishwashing job.
I was going to say podcast clarification.
Podcast clarification.
Michelle's working at a Thai restaurant, not a factory that produces men's ties.
I do not produce men's ties or women's ties or gender non-conforming ties of any description, Jake.
Well, listen, ties.
We love them, folks. That said, it's been pretty sick. It's been the most cashews I've had in a long time. I've grown an appreciation for curry and a deep hatred of curry, in as much as cleaning out the containers that contain curry at the end of the night. Fucking hate it. It does come out easy, but you have to kind of put it flatly on the surface and like put your arm into it, where the phrase elbow grease comes from. Anyway, Today we're joined by a longtime colleague, also hyper buddy, from many years ago. I remember all the way back to Medium Difficulty, and many other publications in the past. And currently, she is streaming at the Freak Museum. You may have also seen her work in previous iterations in Sufficiently Human. I think the Rhizome, was it?
Oh yeah, I've written for Rhizome a few times.
Yeah. Written at Vice, written at numerous. I'm just going through here. Kill Screen, folks. We remember Kill Screen. 5 out of 10, unwinnable. Push Select, Bit Creature, as well as independent blogging at Medium. Just go down the list. She's done it all. Has streamed, has baked, and also sometimes just went on Twitter threads about people beating the shit out of one another in combat sports. Welcome to the show, Lana Polansky. How are you doing today?
Thank you very much, Michelle. That was beautiful, especially the part about the curry.
Oh, God. So when they bake it for a long period of time, they'll do it in this big sort of, it's not cylindrical, but it's like rectangular and has the sort of divot inside where all that curry is contained. And they will be slow cooking that. And it just gets stuck on the rim of it. And you're just, you throw it into soak and it's like, surely this is done. Fucking no. and you have to like put even more hot water in. It's miserable.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. Like it's working with one's hands is like super satisfying as opposed to
Mhm.
sometimes sedentary work. Uh, insofar as that, speaking of sedentary work, your body of writing. Um, so, I mean, for you, uh, in terms of your writing, uh, if I had a way to sort of quantify your body of work, it's that you oftentimes sort of interrogate some of the premises that people making this argument or that argument may be making that kind of has a sort of disingenuous tack. And so a more
Mm.
recent one via Waypoint that our readers can check out is basically how games, tech, and the army use progressive language as a smokescreen.
Right.
And
Yeah.
we've kind of in social media seen a lot of modern tactics in terms of laundering specific identity-based language
Mhm.
in conjunction with, say, a military project or a clandestine uh, intelligence thing. The woke CIA video is what a lot of
Right.
people
Yeah. Yeah.
call it.
Yeah.
And a great deal of the time, there's a lot of overlap between that and like sort of disingenuous use of social justice language.
Mhm.
And I was great where you were able to sort of really nail down and hammer on uh, Jordan Uhl's exposure of Twitch and the U.S. military's connections to the point where
Mhm.
those people were actually doing hearings on it, and like they shouldn't be doing that. I believe it ruled that the United States military could do it, even though it's super predatory. But your ability to sort of pick out those specific threads and have a consistent thesis has been something I've seen you do like, God, 10 years now? 10
Well,
plus ish?
yeah. I mean, I try to. I position myself. I can do journalistic work. I am trained as a journalist. But I'm slow as shit. um, I'm not somebody who makes a very good beat reporter.
Mm,
Because especially in the ecosystem that exists today, um, it's really you have to get information very very quickly. You're not really given a lot of resources or time necessarily to verify the information you have, and you're constantly updated as new details emerge. And like really good investigative shoe leather work is it exists, but it is extremely difficult to come by. The journalists that actually participate in or engage in that are often doing so at great personal risk. Um, and you don't really make a lot of money doing it a lot of the time.
mm,
So it's very undervalued. And this is, partially related to, the economy of like publishing and journalism, and the fact that it is like mostly a private enterprise that is owned by capitalists and serves their interests. I mean, that's maybe that sounds a little bit like too bluntly, like kind of like Marxist language, but that's the essence of what's going on here. So,
oh yeah.
all right, and so for me, it's like I don't have the battery, nor do I have the like spiritual will to um try to survive in that ecosystem. So the
Hmm.
way that I basically sort of formulated my own strategy of dealing with that, which is to say, I'm going to wait for the details to come in and see what I have and be kind of a historian about it and look at the whole pattern of these events and try to put them into context for people. So you're not just constantly being washed over with information without any idea of how to interpret it.
Holy shit, due diligence. What the fuck is it? Yeah. No, it's actually it doesn't really gel with this sort of modern model of like, yes, shoot from the hip and like, okay, is it clear with the lawyers or whatever, or this person
Mhm.
or that person? And yeah, it is like you said. It is. It's either like VC guys or maybe a single issue billionaire. Like right now, there's like a guy that owns The Intercept, and
Mhm.
there's VC people that basically tore apart Deadspin, and even to this day, like if you go through and check out current day Deadspin, it's very. Have you ever watched like one of those streaming shows where they get to say the word fuck once a season?
That's a thing.
Yeah, like one of those Disney or like Marvel. I guess it wasn't Disney at the time, but like any of
I'm gonna
those
guess.
Marvel
I'm gonna
shows, like
guess it's
Luke
like how
Cage.
PG-13 movies used to get one fuck per
Yeah,
movie.
yeah,
Yeah,
Right.
your single
I
fuck.
mean, like there is this similar dynamic in a lot of different sectors. Like you see this in like housing and property development too, where there are
Making
these like
calls
these
more
like
listing.
dipshit millionaires, millionaire fail son guys. For example,
Mhm.
like we have this guy here, Brandon Schiller, who is the son of Steven Schiller, who's like a predatory landlord who's shut down a lot of like beloved local businesses and rent evicted a lot of people, and so he's become this kind of like a villain, like local villain. But focusing over much on him sort of elides the fact that the reason he's able to exist is because the balance of power is entirely tilted towards like landowners and property developers
Mhm.
and landlords. So and there are landlords associations where they can put tremendous amounts of pressure on the government. They can like for instance, there are landlords who also hold political office, which should be illegal, frankly. So and there are these like companies that own multiple buildings all over the city that are worth like hundreds of millions of dollars, right?
It's
um
also like a part of a big narrative. Like I was just thinking about Hannibal Buress being a landlord, basically, of people that
mhm.
get people getting money in Hollywood, even. And what do they do with that? They buy a building.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where you can like become like a little feudal lord. It's like a sort of a reward for having capital, for having money that makes money. You can derive passive income. And like the Airbnb thing now, it's sort of the Airbnb thing kind of quote unquote democratizes that, similar to GameStop currency, like GameStop stock trading was like democratizing finance or whatever. Um, but like at the end of the day, like the biggest winner of that was BlackRock. At the end of the day, Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post.
Yeah.
So in many ways, like these capitalists and these like monopolies kind of are the state in a lot of ways, and what they say kind of determines the way that or what their interests are kind of determines the like modes of like what's politically available for people,
Or what you can say, or
or what
what
you
you
can
can
say, like
write.
the exactly the environment of free speech, the environment of like what acceptable level of discourse is permitted at a certain level. And of course that has an effect on the media, and it also it serves also to um, like undermine worker power amongst people who work in media. So we're all like gig workers now, and we're all getting super proletarianized. So most of us we make dog shit, right? We don't make any money. Like there is a small number of elite um, journalists and columnists and whatever, pundits and so on, who kind of are the whispers of the working of the ruling class, and they kind of interpret the ideologies and propagandize them. And their job is to like be stupid. Like their job is to not know what they're talking about, and that's how they keep their salaries.
Yeah.
Um, even to the point of denying, like if you guys saw like Ryan Grimm trying to explain that
Oh
the
hell
Soviets actually
yeah!
won the World War II to that lady.
The follow up where it's like, yeah, so who liberated Auschwitz? And it's like, yeah, communists. And there's nothing but books upon books of like
Oh.
of like Russian dudes that like formed friendships with these people there, like long after a lot of this had happened.
Yeah, and it's, it's not to undermine like heroic deeds performed by like other allied soldiers. Like that's not the point of it. But it is
Yeah.
whatever you feel about the Soviet Union, it is a just basic historical fact that the decisive battles were in Russia.
Yeah.
Like that's just true. Sorry. So, like that, it's kind of their job to be ignorant, and it's kind of their job to like interpret like ruling class ideologies for regular people, and people who are kind of apolitical or kind of on the fence just will absorb whatever's in like whatever those major institutions are kind of telling them is the truth. But yeah, it also serves to like kind of justify the degradation of like of journalism and of critical writing, like the whole idea of being a critic and what it serves to do. And that's where I position myself as more of as like a critic than as a journalist. Like the whole function of that has just been kind of completely undermined and replaced by like extremely low paying like gig work. And Twitch is an example of exactly that.
Yeah, no, in terms of that, yeah, it's been interesting seeing sort of the arc of your career, and it's sort of hitting on a lot of the same sort of problems I think anyone who's a freelancer runs into. Like Sufficiently Human, I was looking for it, couldn't find it. But beyond that, it's that, yeah, you have to try to wear many different hats as opposed to the specific hat, because one, VC guys will straight up destroy the thing you're doing, or on a macroeconomics level, you will have, say, Facebook decision making do the pivot to video and the efficacy of videos versus written shit, and then them later going back and finding actually no, the numbers were completely wrong, and God knows, like upwards of a few hundred verticals dead because Facebook is sort of a private state unto itself that acts unilaterally and does not answer to any one government. And sadly, in the case of like fucking Myanmar, can actively be a participant in genocide on the behalf of a government. That's a thing Mark Zuckerberg can fucking do.
Yeah.
And that's one of the wild things now. The devaluing of critique and not necessarily being able to name sort of bad faith critique or the sort of laundry of empire that happens in critique that's wild, which is it's always been interesting reading your work, because it's very much standing in contrast to that. Even if the larger institutions are failing or dying or whatever, it is quite literally important to do for its own sake. In as much as people talk about freedom of speech right now, I think speaking and naming problems, despite how much anti-SJW rhetoric or whatever will be leveraged against you, it's like, great, but that's all you've been saying for nearly 10 fucking years. Bang a new drum.
I mean, I do want to go back to something you said about when we were talking about the Waypoint piece. So the real crux of that piece is, so you mentioned like woke capital type stuff, woke CIA. So the real thrust of that piece is to get people to understand that this is a long-standing process. It's not new. It doesn't exist solely because of modern degeneracy or whatever reactionaries think it is. This is a long-standing tactic of capitalism. And you can actually see capitalism as something that is an institutional thing that operates with its own logic or its own kind of intelligence. It wants to expand itself, and it wants to absorb any threats to it to neutralize them. And at the most extreme in that, rears its head in the form of fascism. So which is just the colonial impulse turning inward, right? So like this process of recuperation is something that Lenin talked about. I mean, he didn't call it recuperation, but it's something that comes up with like in like I believe State and Revolution, right? This is something that Lenin talks about. This is something that revolutionaries and radicals have been talking about for at least a century. And the Situationists were the first. They were actually the ones that coined the term in the 1960s. They coined the term recuperation. And basically, what it describes is the co-optation of radical ideas by the ruling class in order to defang them and make them palatable, to turn radical and revolutionary figures into Disney mascots, and to
just to interrupt slightly, it is interesting that you mentioned woke capital, and yeah, the impulse to like say anyone using that sort of discrete language or whatever as like a cultural signifier, like as a sign of power. It's also just like some of the language is just also naming specific problems. I think the biggest and funniest example of this is like the woke capital account on Twitter.
Yeah, I was actually
It's like a
going to bring that guy up.
bloodthirsty tradcath. He wants all trans and non-conforming people to die. He's a fucking freak.
That's absolutely sinister. Yeah.
Right.
Well,
so.
Sorry, go on.
Like the like kind of liberals and conservatives will kind of use these issues of social hierarchy as a kind of football, like kind of a political football, and they sort of recognize its utility because obviously like these questions are really important to significant sections of the working class, and if they weren't, we wouldn't have to talk about them. And the reason that they're in the public consciousness at all is because there are people who are putting in the effort and mobilizing, coming out into the streets and rioting and, making these questions unignorable and putting them front and center, and they pose a challenge. And so this is the reactionary response, that's sort of the fascist response, which is the exterminationist response. But there's also the liberal response, which is the co-optation and neutralization strategy. And they're basically fighting over that. They're basically fighting over whether to co-opt or whether to destroy.
And the answer is both.
Yeah. Well, ultimately, yes. That these dum-dums don't seem to realize that the liberals actually perform a very important service for them, which is acting as a buffer between them and the actual left, and acting as a buffer between them and mass mobilization. And using these things, sort of weaponizing them against the people who actually like are personally affected by these issues. Yeah. So, like the CIA kills how many queer and trans people every fucking year?
It came up also recently with, say, Israel and Palestine, where like, well, if you know anything about Palestine, they hate and they kill like trans people and queer people. And it's like, okay, one, Israel fucking has used gay informant sort of on pain of death against their fellow Palestinians. Two, like it's not legal to be gay married in Israel. Three, in order to get divorced in Israel, you have to go through an ecclesiastic court. And there's a cottage industry of people.
And outside of a very small part of like Tel Aviv, it is not a safe place for queer people in Israel.
No. Yeah, there was some tweet that was like, "Oh, Tel Aviv is a LGBT capital in the region," and it was like, "Who are you? Who's saying that? Who is saying that?"
It's part of a larger campaign of, I guess, what you call pinkwashing.
Also,
that's what I mean. It's like these aren't the express. Like that's not reality.
Even if that were true, that wouldn't justify genocide, which is going to kill vastly more queer and trans people than, any of these particular... I mean, not to justify any reactionary sentiment, but also, what do you think killed Pan-Arabism and Arabic socialism in the fucking first place?
I'd go even further. I'd say, you know what? I'm going to take them at face value. If that is the case, Palestine kills X amount of people like me or whatever, that my impulse would be to side with their genocide or being kept in an open air concentration camp. Like, fucking don't put that on me, and don't wave like someone else's pain or individual struggle as some sort of moralizing force. If you're a living human being, you shouldn't want that to happen to anyone at
No,
all.
of course not, ever.
That's the
And it's
thing.
like, well,
It's a canard.
yeah,
It's a canard. They just want you to not use your critical faculties and not be able to chew gum and walk at the same time.
right, yeah. And so like the whole thing with that piece was just to sort of point out that tech companies, particularly like these really, really large tech monopolies that are all implicated with mass media, like we talked about Jeff Bezos like owning a newspaper, but like there are other kinds of examples of this that are kind of cited in that piece, that these these huge monopolies have become very adept at just recuperating, like they've kind of got it down to a science of recuperating radical language and turning it into something that is like a pale kind of puppet version of itself, Disneyfying it and making it safe and palatable and non-threatening. And that to understand that this is like a dishonest tactic, that none of these institutions have any actual sense of commitment to any of these struggles at all. That's not real solidarity. It's marketing. It's a lie. And that I wanted to put that out there because I wanted to sort of counter the idea that the reason why these companies do this is actually because they're quote unquote woke, and that they're they're being like they're sort of being managed by these like what ultimately translate into this idea of like a rootless cosmopolitan, but these like what are the chuds calling it now? Globo homo.
It's globo homo. Ooh, yeah. It's great you use rootless cosmopolitan. But yeah. I wanted to back up for a second. Eliza had a question.
Sure.
I was going to say that as much as I hate the euphemism treadmill that happens particularly on social media in leftist spaces of how, you're not pure if you use this completely acceptable terminology that was fine last year, but we've all just decided it now makes you a Nazi. I hate that shit because, it causes infighting, etc. But there is one way in which it is useful. And that is that the euphemism treadmill turns faster than these mega corporations can absorb. So you can use it to a certain extent as kind of a litmus because it's an in-group signifier, right? Like, are you up on the latest vocabulary or not? And that's the only thing that it has going for it. But
yeah, it is kind of true that as soon as you can kind of tell that as soon as a corporation gets its hands on something, it's kind of dead.
Yeah.
And that is interesting culturally.
Exactly. As soon as you see the marketing department use it, it can be officially shelved. Like, you can just stop saying it at that point.
Yeah. The only thing I wonder about, though, and I think that is true to a certain extent, but then I think about something like Marvel, which is this like multi-bajillion dollar like juggernaut thing that is very good at, it's not necessarily using the most up-to-date language, but it is very good at recuperating elements of like social justice as a way to propagandize like military recruitment, which is fundamentally what it does, and whitewashing of the CIA, which is the other thing that it does. And like these movies primarily, they're whatever, you're allowed to like them. Like, I'm not going to come to your house and kick the shit out of you for liking a Marvel movie. And I might think about it, but okay, well,
Eliza will. She's done it before.
Yeah, we have a designate for that. It's Eliza.
Great. Good, because I really don't want to get out of bed right now. But yeah, like, I wonder about that because it's like these giant juggernaut, completely saturated pieces of mass media that I think are ultimately historically going to sort of fade into the ether because they're not particularly, like, you watch one and it just kind of glazes over you. At least that's my experience of it.
Well, they are exactly like all of the big budget. These were the AAA movies of the 1950s, all of these huge musical productions. They cost $1 million billion in 1950s money. And my parents hate them and can't remember any of them. And they were just like, oh yeah, everybody would go to see this shit and they would sing the songs for weeks and everybody was obsessed with them, but they were horrible. They weren't, I can't name any of them now. I guess like The Sound of Music is sort of one of those, but Yeah, there, and I mean, if you try to watch any movie from that period that's like part of the mainstream, there's going to be a musical number in the middle that just makes you want to kill yourself, and that's
it's all kitsch.
Yep.
It's unbearable saccharine kitsch.
And serving the same masters too, because that was the era of like hyper-capitalist accelerationism right there, was, you know, just making things bigger and more, and that was the aesthetic. I mean, the co-option of wokeness is also a way of selling people the feeling that they are doing something, because everybody, even if they are, you know, a feckless liberal from Facebook, they do feel bad about fucking police brutality. They feel bad about not having the gumption, and it's not even that they're cowards, but a lot of the times they just don't want to put the effort into going to a fucking protest, right? Which I get. Some people have valid reasons for not showing up, and most people don't. So instead they go to see the latest Marvel movie, and you know, there's a lady in it, and she's strong. And that's their wokeism for the day. Like they checked that box, you know? And
I think that's true. I think it does. It's like sort of this way of like buying complacency. That, you know, you can feel like it's the same kind of consumer activism of like buying fair trade coffee at Starbucks.
I was about to say, marketing's been doing this in a couple realms for a long time.
Yeah, or signing a petition.
Yeah.
That's of those three things, that might be one of the worst things you can do, actually.
Yeah.
Just for your own OPSEC, it's probably, you know,
right.
I wish I would have told younger me that. Jesus. But yeah, I mean, I think that is largely kind of true, that it kind of serves, it's like this passive, it's a big pacifier for people. They're not good, they're not meant to be good, because it's junk food.
It's so interesting to me that it's like, well, it's not super interesting, but, you know, this has been junk food for a certain kind of person for much, much longer than the Marvel movies have been. And it's been weird and interesting to me to see that, like, it's been junk food for a not great type of person typically, which has been the prototypical male nerd, right? They're the people that the reason these movies exist in the first place, and then the reason they've gone on to make a bunch of money is that the people that aren't the prototypical male nerd bought the fuck in.
Yes, and I think that's a really, really important point in all of this. That part of the point of recuperation also, besides defanging any kind of radicalism, is to take very serious concerns that people have, reduce them to a matter of representation, and then use that to sell, basically turn it into a commodity and sell it back to people.
Yeah,
to make money.
Absolutely.
And that's celebrated. It's celebrated as a form of cultural progress. That now it's not just for nerds anymore. Nerds aren't being sidelined anymore. Now we're the mainstream. We're finally getting some respect. You know,
the number of articles written like that over the last 2 decades.
Yeah.
Alone. And all of it essentially just leading to, like, you know, marketing people realized that whatever was going on with these comic books that made probably like 3 decades worth of weird nerds really, really psyched about stuff could actually get tapped into the mainstream. It doesn't take that much. You just need, basically what you need now is like a bunch of post-production movie making effects that now exist, and boom, you got your comic book movies, maybe.
Yeah, and I mean, the football players didn't engage with comic book shit even when I was in high school.
I feel like I'm 30. I feel like I was the last generation to get made fun of for liking Batman. I swear to God.
That stuff's all pretty culturally. It's such a generalized form of mass media consumption.
Yeah, no one cares anymore.
And I find that's always so funny to me too, that like that idea of like the besieged male gamer, or like the besieged like comic book fan. It's like, this is $1 billion industry, and you are the most pandered to person on the planet.
I remember all these narratives. So some context for you, Lana. Michelle and I and Ruben know each other all from the Penny Arcade forums, and I just remember all these narratives of, oh, well, us nerds, we're going to run the world one day, and it's going to be awesome. And it's like, it is so not awesome. It fucking sucks, bro.
Oh my, you got what you fucking wanted.
Yeah, it's like, you got what you wanted, and it fucking sucks.
Yeah.
That's what I would go back and tell 15-year-old me.
I mean, that's the thing. It is the quintessential problem of getting what you want, but not necessarily getting what you need.
Yeah.
And that's kind of been the thing. Like, everyone that does one of those anti-SJW videos or plods into the sort of culture war sector of the entertainment industry, and make no mistake, it is a cottage industry. One literally exists for the other, to the point where it's almost like you sort of wonder if Disney just hands out X amount of money for someone to bitch about representation in movies and too many black people in this, and maybe sometime in the near future someone could be implied to be gay in something and they have a fit about it. Because
go ahead, I'm sorry.
But that's the thing. Like, I mean, they literally will buy every single piece of it. You see this in video games.
Oh yeah, and I think that those particular little annoying, like, reactionary blogger people, those people are actually quite tragicomic, because they actually serve a really important purpose for the companies that they're mad at, which is like driving the conversation and like artificially making it into something that it's not, so that they can sell you back this slop, which is like the lowest they could possibly set the bar. And like they'll go, oh, see, it's pissing off like these horrible, detestable, unpleasant people, these hateful people, these bigots. So obviously we're doing the right thing and we're on the right side of history, and so you have to support us against them. And all it does is drive you back into the arms of these like mega corporations again.
And it's almost, the algorithm does it. Everyone always kind of goes off about the algorithm. But here's the mechanics of everything Lana just talked about. I'm going to lay out bad faith engagement. This has existed since forever. So movie comes out, has a black person in it. Person makes video bitching about it. Video's 45 minutes. 45 minutes you've thought about this as it relates to this guy. Now, there's a few 100,000 people that have seen this video, and X amount of people in the comments section. And you've committed probably 20 minutes of your life to talking about that with other people. And then you go to a requisite message board or your social media of choice and continue to talk about it, continue to share it. And so that hour becomes exponential. And so you've committed 8 hours or 8 hours plus after a certain amount of time to this movie that you've said over and over you're not going to see. Then in all likelihood, if you spent more than 8 hours thinking about anything, you're more likely to connect and consume the thing that you've bitched about endlessly.
They're gonna watch the movie anyway. That's
and even if in a hypothetical world where they don't watch the movie, how many eyeballs have they put in front of the movie's name?
Absolutely.
Let alone just like talked about. Like, it's insane. They're doing marketing for these people.
It's so funny.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah, and
you ain't even getting paid.
You're not even getting fucking paid. And that's the thing. I had faced it myself with some of the bad faith engagement shit leveraged against me in the past, but it also shouldn't necessarily be modeled to anything or everything. For example, political theory and very intense and complicated social constructs, you shouldn't maybe map to that. Specifically American consumerism, or let's just say broadly Western consumer culture, is definitely one where it's okay to be famous. It's even better to be infamous somehow. And I would never say that Marvel is infamous necessarily, but even negative criticism of Marvel serves Marvel.
Yeah.
To the point where
That's why I
they
just
gradually
I just stopped paying attention after a certain point. I
Yeah.
realized even going up to people and saying I don't like these movies is talking about them, and I just
That's-
stopped. I don't care.
This is the thing that I try to get through to people who try to talk to me about this stuff. This is a cognito hazard. You are letting this shit into your brain. And I mean, this is the argument against free speech, right? So, like,
Mhm.
I'm not going that far, but you do have to exercise a certain amount of agency in not letting this shit into your head. And
Yeah.
it exhausts you. It saps your energy.
Oh yeah, I do think that unfortunately it's one of those things like any hegemonic force that you have to contend with it as a reality. So it's not like I don't watch Marvel movies. I don't give a shit
Right.
enough to watch them. I don't pay for them. I don't think about them. I don't buy the Happy Meals with them with the little toys. I don't care. I don't buy Funko Pops. All of that shit should be like melted as far as I'm concerned and turned into something cool, like I don't know, like literally anything else. That like turn it into like a fucking swimming pool or something. Like I don't know, do something with the plastic that isn't Funko Pops. I don't even know if you can do anything with that shit, or if it would just like burn a hole into the atmosphere if you tried to do that. But like,
I don't know if they're recyclable.
Yeah, they're foul, awful abominations. I hate them with my life. But beside the point, you know, I don't consume that stuff really, and I want to get across to people also. And this is why my area of focus as a critic, as like an art critic, is on like media that people don't really know about, media that people don't really talk about, that doesn't get a ton of press, doesn't make a ton of money.
I did want to ask about that next, particularly your Twitch stream, the Freak Museum. Everyone, give it a look. We'll drop a link for you. You go through a lot of different and specific types of games, sort of as a sort of antidote to the current monoculture. The interesting thing, I think, where you were talking about commodification of stuff is, there are some things that can't be commodified, but if you're at the wrong place, the wrong time, the instinct would be to destroy them. But you can't really commodify Jerk City. And the word faggot really came back in a big way these last few years. Like, it's cool to say it now. I didn't think I'd see it in my lifetime, and I was never really a big fan, but by God, they've really made it. They've really made it
all the way
happen.
around. Yeah,
they really made it cool again.
Yeah, big F slur is in the house.
It's
Marvel
back
can't
and it's
take
good
it.
now.
We're taking it back, baby.
Yeah. And I think that like there's an interesting parallel to be made also with, like you mentioned, like the 1950s, like classic Hollywood system churning out just like expensive trash, at the same time as like this is a particularly regressive and reactionary, anti-communist, very like racist part of American history that is just on the precipice of a pretty big cultural shift in terms of the civil rights movement. And this is also the period in history where the nuclear family is asserted as like the dominant economic unit of society. Like the nuclear family structure is asserted as the dominant way of like going about like doing social reproduction. And I think a lot of people again don't really understand how like recent these things are historically. But it's interesting to parallel that moment in history with extremely reactionary political elements with today. And a lot of the discourse around media consumption and morality is coming back in a weird way through like this sort of neo-puritanism and like arguing about like sex in movies, even though a lot of these major movies have no sex in them to begin with. And
God.
The only movies that exist anymore that do have sex in them are usually like art films, foreign films, indie films. And I think this could lead into a pretty interesting discussion of the way that this kind of moral language is wielded against smaller artists. And again, this reactionary bent again serves corporations in streamlining the acceptable modes of discourse and behavior and conduct and streamlining consumption, but also in destroying basically any semblance of non-corporate art, right? Of any art that's made by, like, I think about this a lot in the context of, like, cancel culture. Like, cancel culture does not exist for, like, Marvel Studios or Disney or anything like that.
I'm gonna
but
stop
you know who it does who it exists for? Isabel Fall.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh, by the way, let me just say, if you would like to vote for identify as an attack helicopter for the Hugo Awards, you can do that. Anybody,
we should drop a link for that also.
Yeah, anybody can register as a member of whatever. I can't remember the name of the con where it's like Worldcon, or I think it's Worldcon. So yeah, if you get a Worldcon membership, which I think is $50, you can vote for it. I'm gonna do it. I think voting is in like November this year or something like that. So
oh Lord, it's
not super soon, but we should bring it up a couple times on podcasts going forward.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely,
yeah, good idea.
I do want to interrupt slightly. I will let you continue on that thought. It has been a long held project to not discuss cancel culture on the pod. However, I've unsealed the button. This was the earliest talks.
This is the first time I have heard of this.
Yeah, this is something that Michelle probably thought was like something else.
No,
this was a Michelle's head rule. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah,
Michelle's head. What? My internal monologue just had the conversation with me and didn't share.
Do you think
Michelle's mentioned
doesn't happen
Michelle's mentioned
a
on
lot?
like 5 separate occasions that this is the situation that we wouldn't talk about cancel culture or like current.
I thought we just wouldn't talk about specific people who have gotten canceled.
Okay. But
Michelle's chronology is incorrect. That was pre-Eliza.
Oh shit!
Interesting.
In the alpha of the show before we started with Eliza.
It's such a silly term because it's one of those like weird funhouse mirror reflections of reactionaries of the shit that they do to everybody else.
It's fucking
like, who
Calvin
has actually gotten like who, like even Kevin Spacey or like Louis C.K. These motherfuckers weren't canceled.
As of this
nervous
recording,
projection is what it is.
Yeah, it doesn't actually happen to anybody who
Jeffrey
matters.
Toobin, the dude who got caught jacking off on camera. Toobin literally is back on CNN.
Yeah,
talked about it. Was
will
like,
forever have anybody who ever jacks off on camera now is Toobin.
Well, listen, I mean, look, there are so many examples of cancel culture is such a stupid infantile way of describing it because some of the worst butchers in recent history died happy and old surrounded by family. And, the consequences of their actions was purges of millions and millions of people, Is that cancel culture? Is having the highest prison population in the fucking planet cancel culture? It's such a stupid juvenile way of describing this phenomenon.
Well, there are so many material rewards to abuse. I mean, you don't have to be you don't have to be evil. You don't have to have, antisocial personality disorder to be abusive. All you have to do is do it enough times that you learn that being in trouble is a fake idea and that there are material and emotional rewards to abusing people and exploiting them. People do it because it's fun and it pays. And this is
absolutely
this principle is just not known by the vast majority of the public. And it's laid out so concisely in this book that I'm constantly recommending to people called Why Does He Do That? By Lundy Bancroft. And it's just, I mean, it's in the microcosm, right? It's about specifically men who abuse their domestic partners and specifically domestic abuse. What was that?
Mm-hmm. That was my phone ringing all of a sudden. My mother just decided to call me.
Okay.
Yeah,
and I mean, the
worries,
conclusion that he comes to over and over again, and this is a guy, Bancroft, the author, is a guy who works in so-called rehabilitation programs for domestic abusers, people who are like diverted from prison and go to these, group therapy sessions and stuff instead of that. And he says a couple things about it. One of them is that it almost never works because there's no reason for abusive people to stop doing that shit. And the second thing is that he says that going to these programs and learning the woke language and learning to mimic facial expressions that they're supposed to be making makes them into smarter, better, and more effective abusers.
Absolutely.
And the other thing he says is that there's no like great underground reason people don't become abusive because they were abused as kids. They don't become abusive, because they're evil or there's something inherently wrong with them or they're inhuman. They do it because it's fun and it pays. It just pays off big time to have your wife be terrified of you all the time because she waits on you hand and foot. And the same thing goes on a movie set. If you are an abusive director and everyone's terrified of you, like Devil Wears Prada kind of shit, people kiss your ass.
Yep. This is why every producer I have ever known has the ability to turn into a psychopath on a dime, because the whole thing is based around getting people to get shit done.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to and how is it easier to maintain control of that? Well, like if you yell at them a few times, maybe they'll get shit done a little faster for you the next time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think what's underlying all of that, right, is that, because cancel culture almost, I think, personalizes the issue too much. What's underlying all of that is power. It's power.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's power over your spouse.
It's usually what you're getting paid
power.
in.
It's racial power. It's whatever power you can have that you can take advantage of to get what you want.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
I think I don't disagree with a lot of what people have said. If I did have a critique, in as much as maybe I wouldn't say it doesn't exist so much as I would say it doesn't exist in the conception we have in relation to power dynamics. I can also name, you'd mentioned Isabel Fall. I could think of a bunch of people where the sort of pathology of canceling someone, like we used to just say like call out culture beforehand, like in the 5-year sort of increment behind that, and basically it would just lead to someone being driven out of sort of public life or continue on in public life, but essentially be shamed to the point where they're sort of persona non grata. I've known a few people where it applied and it was like used in bad faith. Hell, I think it's happened to me. I've been the subject of many stalker site campaigns and psycho shit. I would say that maybe cancel culture as seen through the eyes of navel gazing jagovs who write nothing but 20 breathless articles about it. Oh fucking Christ, or the Church of Wokeness. Oh God, I swear to God, the wokeness is a canard. Is the sign of the single most intellectually lazy Jagov that ever. Like, have you read any new Freddie DeBoer?
Oh, good God, no.
Oh, Jesus Christ! I read some. I gotta say, it's like in True Detective season 1, where they like watched a tape together off screen and his partner's like heart is just screaming like no. It's like that. It's just like I've seen Church of Wokeness however many times in sequence. Like you were just gonna get a fucking Tetris outcome and then the line would be cleared. It's just dog shit. It's like doing your best David Brooks or John Podhoretz fucking impression, and it makes me want to kill myself every time I read it. Don't. It's bad. Don't hurt your health. Okay. Don't read something awful. I mean, you can read the website, but that's an aside. Moving on, just to get back, sort of where we were at with regard to the Freak Museum. The sort of outcast, the art collectives and independent creators and sort of outside artists that make games. I've jumped in on some of your streams before, and it was really cool seeing some of the art collectives that made some of the games. Like for you, what's some of like just off the top of your head, like what are some pure bangers? In as
pure
much as that.
I mean, I'm always about Shut Up and Jam Gaiden.
Yes.
That's a top banger for me.
What a classic, yeah. Absolutely.
Ruben loves that one.
Yeah, I'm a big
also a very
Yume-Nikki
entertaining
fan.
Kickstarter for the sequel.
Lots of drama, very wonderful.
You know what? I mean, they are entitled to that $35,000 or however much it was. They can have it.
I couldn't ask for a better sequel
game
from them.
Yeah.
You know what? They made it reality in a way. It was like an ARG.
Yep.
Good for them. Very funny stuff. I've actually toyed with like streaming what exists of, I guess it was like the alpha.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, nice.
Yeah. What else do I really like? I said Yume-Nikki. Yume-Nikki's really good. I like Hylix a lot. I like a lot of Mason Lindroth's stuff. I like Space Funeral a lot. I'm a big Catamites fan. I like Lilith's Zone games a lot. Geez, you know, like there's.
Did you play Diaries of a Space Janitor?
I haven't streamed that one yet, actually.
Oh God, I love that one.
There's a bunch of them. I keep meaning to do the Lisa games too, and I haven't done it yet.
Oh yeah. What about Cosmology of Kyoto?
Oh yeah. And it's, you know, these. Sorry, go ahead.
Eliza asked about one. Yeah, what was it?
Cosmology of Kyoto.
Oh yeah, love that one.
I love that one. I really want to stream that one myself, but I feel like it's gonna turn into like a Jenga falling on top of my head because it's actually pretty hard to play. Although I guess there's probably walkthroughs at this point.
I don't want to necessarily air ideas for future stuff, but we have talked about Twitch streaming. Right now I'm going through Disco Elysium, and I kind of wonder if Eliza, like, if we could work out maybe streaming that in the future. That seems like a fucking good one insofar as that. It's dense.
It's pretty saturated at this point. Like, people have been talking about Disco Elysium since it came out. I
know you just got it, Michelle, but
everybody loves it.
I love it.
I mean, I haven't played it yet. I'm definitely going to, but it's so saturated at this point that I have not gone a single day without hearing about Disco Elysium since it came out.
I'm sorry, I won't add to the cacophony, but like, just like imagine like a polite elbow, like it would be your shit. It's very rich.
I know, and every time somebody tells me that, it's going to be another year before I actually play it.
I won't say anything else because that was me in Undertale.
I'm just not going to do it.
Fuck.
It's
but
just
sorry,
also I really don't think people are going to show up for a Disco Elysium stream at this point. It's too late. It's you're going to have to wait a few years and be like, hey, remember Disco Elysium? Well, we're going to stream it. And everyone's like, yeah, I love Disco Elysium. At this point, absolutely not. No.
Michelle, I got a good suggestion for a Disco Elysium like.
Oh. No, go off, King. Sorry.
I'm not sure.
Sorry, Lana.
I'm not sure what kind of interest people would run into for it, but I'm a big fan of Baldur's Gate, and I think Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 is pretty rarely seen.
I agree.
You know what I've actually thought of doing? This would like maybe take a while, but I've thought of doing like a Command and Conquer string because those games fucking whipped.
Yeah, fuck.
Ruben this time last year was trying to get us to all play CNC.
Me and another Discorder, we got our fucking spouse of Francine actually from the last episode. Lauren.
Star Control 2.
We got the Command and Conquer collection on EA that they have right now.
I actually played a bunch of old. That's Command and Conquer is not that it's RTS, but I've played a bunch of FMVs actually.
Oh yeah,
because I played a bunch of old like DOS games, and I played a bunch of some of those were just like old computer games from the 90s. So I played like Harvester, which is a really really cool game.
Oh yeah,
Harvester's a band.
I played
Double Switch. Have you played Covert Action?
No, I've played Double Switch, which was also really cool. I like that one a lot. Phantasmagoria is really fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So like there's a bunch of these like old games that I really like to play and show people. Night Trap was a lot of fun. Part of it is that like to, not to say like I want to establish a canon, but to sort of challenge the existing canon. So like there's a kind of thing where people think that like there's a kind of weird history gap I think a lot of people have, where a lot of people think that like indie games were kind of invented in like 2008.
Oh yeah.
And like games only got interesting during this period of the indie boom. And it's not that games got interesting during this period, it's that companies figured out a way of basically taking a ground rent through royalties off of games that were made for extremely cheap or for no money.
Right.
And they started mass marketing them through their like through Steam and through all of like Xbox and PlayStation like marketplaces. And that's really what happened, is that it was like during the financial crisis where they were kind of scouting for basically looking for new frontiers, because that's what capitalism does in a crunch, is it's trying to seek out new things to take advantage, like to monopolize and to extract profit from. And there's always been, since the very beginning of the history of games, there have always been hobbyists and weird little crafts people who do weird little art experiments with this stuff.
Yeah, but it predated large games. By decades.
By a lot, yeah. And it always coincided with them, and it wasn't unusual back in the day for some of these incredibly interesting experiments to be published on a major platform. And they cost a lot of money to make, actually, quite a lot more than now.
Oh yeah, fucking Mark Hamill and Wing Commander and shit like that. That stuff was expensive.
They hired a Gregorian choir for Phantasmagoria. And I think that the blue screen that they used, like the amount of frames that they used was like more per second than any other game released during that time.
Incredible.
I think it was released on like 12 discs or something insane like that.
Yes.
That's one of those games that I would read about in like an old, like a random EG article that would list weird games, and you would read about it and never be able to see it in the wild.
Well, I don't know if that's true about Phantasmagoria, although I do know what you're talking about. Phantasmagoria did have quite a lot of cachet.
Oh, that's fair. I was probably behind it. I was probably a little behind it culturally and was just kind of like reading about it as a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Night Trap is another funny example of that kind of thing blowing up in a weird way.
Right.
Because that was with Mortal Kombat, Night Trap was like the game, I think that was Joe Lieberman's whole thing of
it was one of the big anti-violent game examples.
Yeah, it was like doing a congressional hearing on violence in video games, which led to the creation of the ESA. And like you play Night Trap and it's like the most campy thing in the world. Like even the developers could not they were agog that anybody was finding this in any way offensive. It wasn't anything that you wouldn't see in a B horror movie of the same period. It was actually very, very tame.
Yeah,
and very funny, actually.
There were a lot of other games around. I mean, that's all the confusing thing about like Jack Thompson and Lieberman and all that shit, is there is so much other shit that was so much more vile. I mean, Custer's Revenge.
Oh yeah,
predated that by decades. It was on Atari or something, and that one's awful. Like it's like 8-bit, but it's some of
conceptually awful.
Right, it's some
so
of the
awful.
worst content ever published. So it's so funny. It's like, really, you think this is bad, man? Let me show you some shit.
It's a bunch of guys, and like they're basically putties from Power Rangers, the vampires in Night Trap. They're just guys in Zentai suits that are just scruffing up a girl's hair a little bit.
Yeah,
it's very, very funny, and it's suspiciously selective. Like what society at large kind of chooses to get mad at and scapegoat.
Yeah.
There's an obvious reason why nobody gives a shit about Custer's Revenge, besides the fact that it's like an old Atari game, is the fact that it's about colonial violence.
Yep. Everyone's just like, okay. That makes sense. That seems like a reasonable thing to make a video game about. That's fine. Yeah. It's, I mean, and that sort of signifies or telegraphs really like how fake the outrage is. Like if you really cared about this shit, you would find better examples, because they are there and they're not hard to find.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
And it's like, it goes back to the Marvel thing. Like the military and CIA propaganda in Marvel movies is so much more heinous than like any sex scene from any movie that you could ever argue about. But the focus is on these very petty little moral issues of propriety and degeneracy instead of on these, you know, much more pressing examples of institutional violence.
Well, I mean,
it's fine to do the war crimes. You just have to put the right spin on it, you know?
Yeah, you just can't show a dick on TV.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I sometimes speak with a, let's say, rotating group of friends on the subject, and it's frustrating because I think that there is a tendency to be like, well, if you speak openly about sexuality or sort of the ways in which people interact with one another, there is an inherent danger of being like a fucking weirdo sex nerd, let's say.
Yes.
Where it's like, that's... Where it's like, you're making us miserable by making this cool thing.
No one wants to be
uncool.
Erica Moen.
That's why I don't follow Michelle on Twitter.
I am not a sex nerd.
You post your butthole all the time.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, Michelle. I'm gonna. I don't know.
Nerd about it though.
I'm gonna.
Also,
is that being a sex nerd or being a sex chat?
Explicitly like tie every. Yeah,
Ooh,
yeah, exactly.
It is hardcore nerd mode.
I do think
you are a nerd.
Oh my god!
I've never posted feet. You post feet all the time, and I've never said anything about this.
I'm charging for it, and
damn,
and cleaning up. I might add,
it's not legal.
It is, Michelle. Michelle, you've been hoisted. You've been hoisted by your petard.
That's right.
I really have never posted feet. I don't think I've ever posted feet.
Don't post feet for free.
Don't post feet.
Never for free. Never for free. That is money in the bank. You save that until you need a root canal.
Oh god.
Yeah.
I'm serious. That is what my financial thoughts come down to these days. It's like, do I have enough clout to get a GoFundMe to pay for ketamine? Like, is this the thing that I want to spend my clout on, or should I wait until I get pancreatic cancer? These are the things that I have to weigh as, you know, a self-employed person. It's great. I love it.
Then the prompt for the mysterious stranger in Fallout plays, and the guitar strings go strum, down, and you look down, and it's like, oh wait, I have feet, and there it is. That said, in terms of that, sexuality, and specifically, whether it's like gender non-conforming people or gay people or whatever, I think one of the biggest worries was when straight people had looked basically at some of the sex in my comic and were like, I'd never seen anything like this before. And it's like, well, I mean, if you'd looked at gay porn once, you've probably seen something not dissimilar. So it was disheartening because it's like, these are like queer allies or whatever. And you haven't even just looked at gay porn, let alone straight or you haven't even looked at like gay porn, let alone trans porn or this or that. I'm not expecting someone to be.
There was nothing crazy in your comic.
But that's the thing. That's the thing. It was like mainly vanilla outside of like some mild drug use or like mild choking or whatever. But
straight people never do that.
Yeah, it's so sanitized. It's so everything is very sanitized in film. Like there have been X amount of Marvel films with no sex scenes.
It's so
not
political.
Even heavy petting or kissing. There's not been kissing in the films. It's insane.
It's playing with action figures.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Even these, they're like Ken dolls. Like, yes, they are all jacked up and juiced up and whatever, but
they're totally sexless.
And they're not even. And they're not even like necessarily, they're not necessarily even in the strictest terms like superhero movies. I think the coolest thing about the superhero genre of comic books is when a superhero walks into the room, how do you know that's a superhero? He sticks out like a sore fucking thumb and looks unnatural.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he has shapes and maybe a mask and shows you a little bit of human flesh to let you know this is just someone in a big fucking gay Liberace suit with weapons on his belt or whatever, but
Well,
he's
that's why
just
I like pro
you.
wrestling.
That's why
Yeah.
I like Michael Keaton as Batman, because that dude
Yeah.
is like,
Sure.
he's like 5'5", you know, he's like $145 on a good day. I could throw that guy over my shoulder, which is how Batman should be. He shouldn't be a
Yeah.
fucking gym monster. He should be a dude who has a lot of cool shit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the modern sort of problem of monoculture being driven in one way, excuse me, has sort of been like in the past, where this is not necessarily a new phenomena, as you'd said with the musical. I also think of the American Western as a sort of invention of the film film going audience, like it being that banal and that boring for so long did lead to the sort of the creation of outsiders that then bucked that said trend.
Mhm.
So you would get Sam Peckinpah, and you would get the Wild Bunch and the violence and the bloodiness of the Wild Bunch, and then everything that would come afterwards.
Oh yeah, the 1970s weird wave of
and then the
Westerns.
exploitation genre that would spin out of that, and it would be very fucking weird to make your patented John Wayne films. Instead, you would get the Clint Eastwood stuff, which was more violent, sexual violence, you name it. Cultural taboos were thrown into play. You had to shake things up.
God, I love the 70s.
The inherent danger of the superhero genre as it relates to that is also all we do now if Marvel isn't directly doing that. And so you would have something like, say, Watchmen. You would have the Watchmen television show, which I know so many people that love it. I absolutely fucking hate it. It's the only time I've yelled at a television show.
We're going to have to do that sometime, me and you, Michelle, because I more and more feel like you're the only one that I could talk to about that.
But
are you saying Watchmen? You don't think Watchmen is part of the institution of superhero movies?
Oh no, it most certainly is. But
okay,
the process of deviation, right, where you sort of go ahead, and this is the inherent danger of Watchmen. That Alan Moore talked about a lot, where it was like, it was a critique, but it was also like sort of meant to stay there. It wasn't meant to constantly be replicated,
right?
As a standard, as a sort of standard bearer.
Yeah,
Watchmen
Alan Moore likes
a standard
fun
bearer.
superheroes.
Yeah,
he made Watchmen to get the rest out of his system.
Yeah.
He didn't. Yeah.
There were so many good reactions to the edifice of superheroism in the 90s, and we are now in the 1950s, like, accelerated capitalist stage of culture, and I fucking hate it. And when I think about the stuff that I grew up with, Mystery Men is not a good movie, but boy does it have some great shit in it, even stuff like
also...
what was that Samuel Jackson and Bruce Willis,
Unbreakable.
Yeah, that's fucking good.
It's a good movie. And this is also the era of, like, you could get movies optioned for, like, Tank Girl.
Another
absolutely.
just piece of shit, but like a magnificent failure. A magnificent failure.
It's a beautiful piece of
one.
camp.
Yeah,
it's a beautiful piece of camp.
The Shadow
Crow is like a fun movie.
The Crow.
Fucking Blade.
I was just about to say, we can't not bring up Blade.
God,
that's
Blade
like the
is
end
so
of that
good.
era almost. It's just
so good.
We've
Blade is like the crown
so many
jewel.
times this summer.
Yeah.
We are fully Blade pilled at our Discord.
Yeah. We're a pro Blade podcast.
That kind of went out the door with the end of the middle state movie.
I would say that even the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans still have they are self-conscious.
The first X-Men
self-aware.
Are kind of
the
like
first
that,
X-Men. Yeah, I remember the very first X-Men was like, okay, this is
Yeah.
interesting. I'll see where this is going.
it.
And then the other shit came out. I was just like, no, I'm done. This is it.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Yeah, because it's just been completely turned into slurry at this point.
It is. It's just pablum.
There was
I'm interested
novelty.
to see what happens in 10 years. Like, because there's always the pendulum will swing back eventually.
Yeah.
I think we're going to get some interesting
Oh
shit.
yeah, I've been waiting for the fall of superhero movies since the first Avengers movie, and it's just
Yeah.
hasn't happened.
I mean,
yet.
No.
I'll be frank. I do know people in the industry. I maybe don't mean towards their individual careers, but the sort of monolithic structure of even superhero comics as a sort of mechanism for constantly renewing IP and never having transgression. Like I can't
Oh,
I
yeah,
can't I can't wait for those legal arguments to renegotiate the ownership of those characters for the millionth time, and maybe it doesn't work out for them because, like, by God,
There are
do something
holdouts.
new and interesting with them. Holy
We've still
shit.
got the Venture Brothers. And we
Yeah.
still
Yeah, but it
we
will be the end of an era.
we have
Yeah, it
we
will.
we have a new tick every 20 years.
I've heard the new
It's
Tick
true.
show is good, then I have
It
not
is-
watched it.
It's
in
very
my
good.
Tick
opinion,
is sort
as
of
a
the Laura Palmer of
as a
superheroes.
as a big Tick fan and as a fan of Patrick Warburton and the animated and the comic book, I really liked the Amazon Tick. I really
Right on.
liked it.
That's,
Sarah
It was-
Fenowitz
that's what we
was-
want to hear.
It
Yeah,
was
that
actually
Sarah
sounds
pretty good.
Fenowitz
Yeah, I
was
agree.
good.
nice.
Sarah Fenowitz was great.
Yeah,
He was,
I like him.
It was Sarah Fenowitz, and you can watch him do anything because he can
Right.
do it all. But he was doing a very sort of gentle impression of Warburton, who executive produced. So it was kept within the Tick sort of franchise spectrum. Like I want Ben Edlund, I want Warburton, I want those guys, I want them all involved. And I actually knew somebody who knew, I don't know if he knew Edlund or just somebody at New England Comics, but he said he kind of gave me the background on why every new version of the Tick is so completely different than whatever came before. And it's because very early in his career, Edlund signed away the rights to all of the characters and setting and everything, except for, I think, the Tick and Arthur are the only ones that he retains copyright for. So that's why, American Made turned into Captain Liberty. It's why Deflator Mouse turned into Batman Well, which is one of the best conversions of a name that I've ever heard. I mean,
Batman Well is a pretty great name.
it's
I won't
so
lie.
fucking good. And Nestor Campbell is just amazing. So yeah, I think that the new Tick was amazing. I was really disappointed that it got canceled, but at the same time, it's like it won't have time to get bad. So,
Right.
it's like every version of the Tick, we get X amount of seasons, and then it gets canceled, and everyone's like, "God damn it!" But it never gets bad. There's every Tick that's out is just
Yeah. Hopefully there'll be
unimpeachable.
another Tick project in a few years. Who knows?
Mm.
I think they're-
that's
they'll-
sort of.
Go
Sorry,
ahead.
Well,
No.
that swinging pendulum is just like that's how art production under capitalism fucking works.
Mm-hmm.
But that's how everything, like that's kind of how it functions, where it accumulates and forms monopolies, and then those monopolies become kind of unwieldy, and they get challenged by upstart competitors, and then some of those competitors become really successful, but most of them fail, and then those competitors either get absorbed into the existing institutions or they become the new monopolies and take their place,
Yeah.
and then they get neutralized in the same way.
This was true before corporatization too. I mean, as an art historian, I can tell you that, you had Victorianism is a really good example because it was, again, very conservative, obsessed with aesthetic purity as an equivalency to moral purity, obsessed with sort of the consumption of moral art as part of good living. And then the symbolists and the Vienna Succession, and to a certain extent the Pre-Raphaelites, although they were kind of regressive in their own way, came along and were like, "That's so boring. We're the new shit. Check out this monster I drew," and everyone was like, "Wow." So that just keeps happening. I mean, that's just human nature, which is nice because we get bored of shit.
Yeah, it does keep happening that way, but this is also happening within the context of like Victorianism is still it's early capitalism. It's capitalism of the Industrial Revolution.
Oh yeah,
and so that's like a social condition that's holding that up, where like it's the same, often even the same families, right? Like when I say it's the same ruling class, I mean that in a very literal way.
It's literally still the Rockefellers and
yeah.
The Murdoch family.
Yep.
Yeah,
you can. I mean, if you read those old Edith Wharton novels from the turn of the last century, it's like those are the people, the nouveau riche in New York in 1902, are building the city in those books that goes on to create that sort of Bohemian Grove type ruling class. And the criticism she makes of it in those novels is exactly the same as the criticisms we have now. Like nothing has changed.
No, not really.
No.
On another note, do you want to know who has posted feet recently?
Yes.
Go on.
The Deputy Prime Minister of my country, Canada, Chrystia Freeland.
Oh my god.
Posted feet.
Wow.
And
no.
It was in the she was like pictured taking her shoes off in Parliament.
No.
What a mistake.
then-
What a mistake.
No.
And
Hate to see a
so
man like
a
this.
bunch of like girl boss liberals decided to post their feet in solidarity with
No.
Chrystia Freeland.
No.
Hashtag girl boss feet.
No.
Feet
It's
gate.
so
Michelle's
wild to me
nightmare.
that like a 30-year-old doesn't understand the feet thing. You know, like you've been on the internet your whole life and no one's told you about feet.
Oh man, there's even a joke. I mean, I've been watching this show Hacks where it's about literally an older woman comedian having to work with a younger woman comedian, and she makes a WikiFeet joke. The older woman comedian's like, "What's that?" And like she explains WikiFeet, and she's like, "Did you know about this?" And both of her assistants are like, "Yes."
Yeah.
It's like only the old woman doesn't know about WikiFeet.
I don't know what the thought process is here, but I can only imagine what's going on in the Crystal Mind Palace of people who think that Chrystia Freeland is like somebody to admire.
Well, also that level of just sort of kind of brainwormedness is
Yeah.
hard to reckon with.
Yeah.
I mean, no, at this point, Kristen Cinema will post feet. So don't worry about that. If that will be the new political sort of refrain, to shield oneself from any and all criticism.
Has
Just
Naomi Wolf
whip 'em
posted
out.
feet yet? Like that seems like the
She
next
should.
logical.
She can't. She no longer can't. Pour one out.
Has
Oh,
one
that's
more-
Silenced.
true.
She's been silent.
She got
Suspended.
canceled.
Truth.
Yeah.
She got canceled.
She got canceled
Yeah.
for saying that poop and pee should be separate.
I mean, go off though. I don't. Whenever they're together, it's not like a good time. So I mean,
Maybe she had a point.
She's onto something.
I fucking loved the Joyce Carol Oates foot thing. That
Ugh.
was awesome. I love it whenever Joyce Carol Oates is the main character. I
She's
live
so
I live
funny.
for those days.
It's one of those things where you know, not to say that these are like, you know, people you want to emulate necessarily, but
Mhm.
you have to enjoy a good main character. Like
Oh,
you have
yeah.
to enjoy just a good hot mess.
And the other thing about Joyce Carol Oates is like, yeah, she's oldish, I guess, and like really out of touch and stuff, but she's kind of harmless, you know?
Yeah.
She's not I'm not aware of anything that she's done like institutionally or personally to make anyone else's life worse. So it's just kind of
Mhm.
like I don't have, you know, strong emotions about her. So her posting her fucked up feet is just purely funny. It's like it's a real easy chuckle. I like that.
Yeah, no, I think she's had some like bad takes, but
Oh yeah, remember when
Like-
she thought that Triceratops was alive? Do you remember that?
They're back, folks.
that's so good.
Oh god, did you
that
not
owns.
see this? God, this was good. I bet I can just Google Joyce Carol Oates Triceratops, and I don't think that she was joking. I think that this
Please throw it in
It's just-
chat.
You have to just be able to appreciate a goofy but basically harmless dingleberry every once in a while. Some
She-
people are artists at that.
you know, Joyce Carol Oates claims that it was a joke. This happened in 2015. But I do not believe her. I
Oh,
absolutely
2015. This is probably. I want to say a lot of people became Twitter hyper vigilant around the
Wow.
time frame of 2013 to 2014. But let's
this
just give
URL
this a look.
is just
Yes.
this is unclickable.
Let's see.
I don't think she was
I think I'm
joking.
close to reading it. Let's see.
I don't know why.
So barbaric that this should still be allowed. No conservation laws are in effect wherever this is.
Oh, I remember this now.
And then
It's
now,
Spielberg with the Triceratops model.
yeah, I was about to say,
Incredible.
Chris Tilley says this guy thinks it's cool to kill defenseless animals to take a selfie. Jerk. Oh man.
I don't think she was joking. I really don't.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know how old
I cannot give
she
her the
is.
benefit of the doubt for that one.
Oh,
Like to me,
mm.
it's like worse if she is joking.
I think
That makes
that
sense.
I think she just looked at it and she was like, "Oh, that's probably a rhinoceros," and just made the tweet. And then, yeah,
I mean,
I
maybe
have
she
seen
just thought
old
it was an
people do
elephant.
stuff like
Yeah.
that.
No,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I have seen old people do stuff like that,
Like,
and they, I mean, they
Joyce Carol Oates looked at that picture at like very low resolution.
right. She doesn't have her glasses on, and
Yeah.
she's on her phone. Like her glasses are up on her forehead. You know how they do that,
Yep.
and they
She
put
thought
their
it was a
phone like
cat.
right up in their face. Sorry, Mom, but this is what boomers do. So
It's true.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Excellent. No, yeah, but yeah, we lose something when we try to sort of sanitize the internet. Of, you know, I'm not making any apology for like outright fascists or anything like that, but of, you know, people who are just a little bit, you know, offside.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And
There's
even
a difference
then-
between weird and being like terrible.
Yeah,
But
and the
even-
conflation of the two, I think, is kind of a dangerous thing.
Yeah,
I wonder where that
absolutely.
Triceratops
It's
model
one of
is
those
now.
things, you know, you touched on earlier where like teenagers these days are starting to share like Tipper Gore-esque views on
Yeah.
sexuality and other things in media.
Oh yeah, I'm
Um,
seeing like 20-year-olds post stuff like that. God, what did I see? It was a few months ago that just shocked me. Someone said something that they said that they got their period when they were 12, and that this was way
Okay.
too early, and that
What?
somebody should have given them puberty blockers.
whoa.
And I had to do
God.
this. I had to do a thread about it. I'm like, that's
No.
literally the average age of monarchy.
Let's just-
Everybody gets
yeah.
their period when they're 12 or a little before. Like, and I'm
Yeah.
seeing a lot of takes like that coming from people on Tumblr who think that you are not supposed to have any sexual feeling whatsoever until you're 18, and if you do, it's like unnatural.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very weird. It's very weird. And it's
Are they
also
insane?
It
I
feels
mean-
like something that develops when you're, I mean, I don't want to say like they're all too online, but where else are they going?
I want to try to, this will be maybe not as charitable, where it's a group I've usually been hyper charitable with, but like it sort of seems like in many ways sort of the inverse of the sort of 4chan alienated person, not necessarily an incel, but just a piece of human wreckage.
Sure.
Where the only
Yeah.
way you can like feel anything is you're just a Voltron
Going
of
online.
slurs
And saying the N-word, yeah.
and constantly haranguing people and acting antisocial because you sort of lack the investment in either people in your life or in yourself because you'd have no prospects. And in
Right,
some
yeah.
ways, the sort of Tumblr methodology of this comes from a different place, in that it's not that you shouldn't be positively affirmed, but not everything should be affirmed uncritically. We're still having
Yeah.
difficulty.
Right.
We're still having difficulty delineating,
Mhm.
which is also why I'm hesitant with being hypercritical, in the sense that that's the same way that, you know, anti-trans people say, well, you shouldn't be uncritically affirming of everything. And it's like, well, fucking hold on. I just mean in the sense that there is a sort of tendency to broadly apply harm reduction to everything, and especially those folks, the sort of P crew ISIS, we'll call them.
Oh god, yeah.
And the thing is, I've mentioned this on a few episodes, and I will keep doing so. The most appalling Tumblr blog I'd seen was how to safely attempt to botch killing yourself. Sort of Tumblr.
Wow.
What?
Yeah.
So like instructions of how to survive and get a lot of attention, basically.
Well, not just that, but also basically, how to bandage yourself up, how to basically try to like bandage yourself after heavy blood loss if you've done a lot of cutting and had a bad cutting sessions, and then also talking out cutting sessions, like a bad impulse to have, like where you're cutting yourself and like you get through your day and it's a thing you do and you have so many scars you look like fucking Victor Zaz or something, and it's it's one of those things where you run aground of some taboos because we are trying, a lot of people with progressive beliefs in certain circles or whatever, or people that try to put forth acceptance as this thing to move forward or this or that. And it's like, is that something you can accept? Is that a thing to sort of just say, well, that's a can I have to keep kicking down the road? And for me personally, I can't. I couldn't see myself recommending that to someone else in good conscience. And that's the thing. Like in these scary ways that a lot of those 4chan people sort of did that. Some of the more insidious parts of Tumblr were that when they laundered that through sort of progressive language and taught themselves how to hurt themselves and debase themselves and to turn affirmations into making yourself a lesser. And then you took some of those pathologies and exploded outwards, and unfortunately, yeah, you're sort of like this sort of subject of this weird social engagement mechanism that just grows like a forest, with those sort of controls or caps or real safeguards, even appealing to the mods. How the fuck does the mod contextualize that?
Well, there are no mods anymore. There's an algorithm that blocks you if you type the word suicide and shows you a little screen that says, "Do you need help? Call this number." And then if you call the number, the person on the other side is reading from a script.
And people,
I can say this from personal experience. And if you ask them to go off script and to like talk to you like a human being, they literally can't, and often they will just hang up on you. So
that's the terrifying thing. It's that people are quite literally conflating social media terms of use and service, and they sort of rule sets and conflating it with actual morality. The kink at pride discourse that happened early on, when people later learned that it was induced by a series of telegrams channels by right wingers, where basically Shoe on Head and Vaush, two streamer fuckheads,
were
basically
luminaries of the left.
Yeah, luminaries of the left, and basically it's looked at a ticketed event, a fulsome leather thing in which some dipshit parent, yes, brought their kid in, and the kid looked at a dude in a puppy play thing. But they were conflating that with the San Francisco Pride event, which did not allow that in those specific terms. And so already it was arguing on the basis of misinformation. But not only that, you had several thousand gormless jackasses that breathlessly reread what these people say, and there's no due diligence on the part of these people where they were willing to look and interrogate that, and instead constantly circulate 1950s style pathologies. Well, if you're a gay or trans person that like even wants to be outwardly sexual in that way in public spaces designated for you, then you're a pedophile somehow. Like, that's how bad it's got. Like, these are people saying what Phyllis Shayfly used to say, while this was a time where police could openly fucking beat you for that. And it's disgusting. And that's kind of It's kind of that's kind of the bad part of a lot of people's critical faculties and being able to sort of question existing power structures. Instead, you run to them. They're the only people with answers. And when that's all you do, you come back around and you try to propagate what you've interpreted from that, and you've had no sort of contextualization, no dissenting ideas, then yeah, what else would happen? And yeah, that no, I literally, if I ever have sex in a book, it is just explicit penetration, and the reason is because I know going into it, now especially, there are like 2 places I'm definitively going to be censored, and it's already too many for me. Now I learned, as per eBay's new rules, the copies of The Pervert will not be sellable on eBay.
Oh wait,
that's a major site.
Is that?
Yeah.
Damn. Is that something where, like, I mean, you said it out loud,
anything
but like,
with pornographic content.
Would The Pervert immediately wouldn't it have to get flagged by someone first?
It would, but the thing is, the rules are so broad.
But it would qualify. It would, if someone flagged it would qualify. Yeah,
right,
that fucking sucks. Yeah.
And with that, there's also comicsology. If you
That's
buy
the one I was going to bring up.
Digital versions of our comic on iOS, straight up censored.
Right.
And
Apple just got rid of
where
sex
are
apps.
all the fucking, like,
and Apple now. Apple is going to, if there's pornographic sharing of images or pornographic use of something, so Grindr, any gay sex app, that's in the, I don't know if they have been removed, strictly speaking, but you have a gay CEO of a major company that is a massive censor in the world, essentially censoring gay existence out of a phone that's probably owned by a great deal of Americans. Like, that's how bad it is.
Well, this is what they were warning us about in the 70s. There were fringe gay activists, including like Arthur Evans, etc., who were like, you are not going to like what happens after you achieve the respectability that you want so badly.
Yep.
They were right. They tried to warn us. Nobody listened. And there was this ongoing movement for fucking respectability and acceptance into the monoculture. And
yeah, I think that, like, there is this really important element of socioeconomics and of class, where if you treat any affinity group, any political identity group has a certain set of collective interests, right? But it's not a monolith, and it's still going to be split by other intersections, other factors, and one of those factors, of course, is class. So I think that there is something kind of happening here that I think can be kind of correlated to, like, what I was talking about with, like, landlords, where you have, say, like, the YIMBY type of people, or kind of the sort of millennial suburbanites who, like, move into the city to gentrify it, and who are the people who either, like, own luxury condos, or they have the kinds of social and economic privileges that allow them to live in those things. So what's ended up kind of happening is, like, the gentrifier mindset is sort of bringing this sort of suburban ideology, this like kind of labor aristocrat or kind of petty bourgeois ideology into the city. And then this whole mindset of, like, we're going to clean up the city. We're going to clean up the city of degeneracy and crime and make it respectable for good, nice white families.
Mm-hmm.
And then that becomes a justification for, exploding police budgets and expanded powers and
beating homeless people,
tearing up encampments, closing down shelters. Here there's, like, this thing where we're supposed to build social. We have more we have more vacancies than we have people that need homes.
Yes.
But also it's something like 10 to 1 or something. but also we have this like electoral promise of at the municipal level to build social housing, and one of the reasons that they've flagged on that promise is because the property developers that they have these public-private relationships with all have an out, like they have a veto, and a lot of them are just using that, like they're just kind of like buying the land from the city and using it to build luxury rentals or condos, right? Or rent-evicting people. This is a problem that's happening all over the city. They're rent-evicting people and then flipping the units and selling them for more.
Yeah.
And this was like their response to what happened with COVID, where the vacancy rate was actually at a historic low because nobody wanted to leave. So, and I know all this because I actually am like kind of involved in anti-gentrification stuff, like in my city. So I think that there's something going on here ideologically and culturally with the kind of no kink at pride stuff, where it's like what they really, the bourgeois values, this is fundamentally what we're talking about, going back to Victorianism and all that. The bourgeois values around art and consumption and like respectability and a presentation has a lot to do with like propriety and circumspection, and of sort of suppressing any uncomfortable discussion that forces you to acknowledge the reality, like the reality of inequality, the reality of, social murder. The whole purpose of these conversations, it's all centered around, well, you can be gay in the sort of vague kind of sexless, like disconnected way.
You can be gay, but don't you dare be a faggot around me.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Why do they have to?
Oh
Yeah,
my
exactly.
God.
Why do they
so
have
accurately
to be so
describes
fruity?
so many people I grew up around.
Yeah, and so like this whole thing with like, I do think fundamentally at the end of the day that these are right-wing discussions. This is right-wing astroturfing, especially this no kink at pride shit. Like, this stinks of a fucking 4chan op. But I think that they're going back to the discussion about how liberals kind of recuperate things and sort of whitewash things for the purpose of justifying or giving intellectual justification to reactionary politics. The same thing is happening with these queer kids who are like the kids who are online 24/7, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So who are they, right? It's like soft little uwu tender queers who had like, they don't do anything.
They're not going to be at Pride.
Yeah. So they're mostly worried about fitting in and conforming and being respectable, because they're never confronted with the actual violence that actually comes down on, say, like gay men that were brutalized for being homeless or sex workers.
I will slightly push back on that. I get that there are a lot of people that necessarily do that. I think there's also sort of an insidiousness where you are actually part of those groups of people that are actually abused and do face that as the counterpoint to the sort of deeply alienated shanner. And there's like a lot of cross contamination. There's that kind of trans shanner. There's that kind of like misanthropic Tumblr person. The problem I've found is like people sort of have used their pain and the hatred and whatever they faced. I can't tell them how to feel about contextualizing their pain or whatever, but I fucking know one of the ways forward isn't like turning it into like a weapon against someone who is also suffering. Like, I do think we live sort of in an age of weapons, let's say social weapons, but like a thing you do with the weapon is like have it fit a specific purpose and a specific use as a tool, as opposed to like using it for fucking mass shootings.
Right. Well,
that's the thing. Like, it would be easier for me to just say that like these are sort of the tender queers that are sort of far removed and are removed from class. Far from it. A lot of these people are also as precarious as like anyone else.
Well, okay. Hang on. I have some medical context for what's going on here.
Okay.
There in the past few decades, there has been a growing field of studies about trauma, which is good because we knew a shitload about this after World War One. Like, there are a lot of Pathe videos about the somaticization of shell shock in World War One soldiers, that for some reason during the intervening time, particularly the 1950s, where there was like a lot of regressive psychology going on, we just lost all of that knowledge about somatization disorders and how trauma is reflected in physical illness. Okay, so fast forward to, the past few decades, there has been a lot more research about specifically PTSD and how it differs from something called CPTSD, which is complex post-traumatic stress disorder. It was not put into the DSM-5, even though it should have been, but it's recognized by the World Health Organization. CPTSD is when you, for example, have a really shitty childhood. So PTSD would be, I was in 9/11 and one bad thing happened to me and I'm traumatized from it. CPTSD is like, I was abused every single day for 12 years. That those are two different kinds of trauma and they have to be treated differently. So a lot of these genderqueers that we are talking about do in fact have CPTSD, whether it's formally diagnosed or not. And one of the physiological aspects of post-traumatic stress disorder, particularly CPTSD, is that studies of traumatized populations, if the study authors were responding to an emergency, during the study they would test the levels of cortisol, which is the stress hormone that was circulating in these people after an emergency of some kind, like a fire or a big pile up on the freeway or something like that. So they would get back to the hospital, they'd test their circulating cortisol levels, and then they would follow up with the patients later. What they found was interesting. It was exactly the opposite of how we think stress works. They found that the people who had the highest amount of cortisol in their systems, meaning the people who were the most physiologically stressed and were freaking out the most, like screaming, crying, panicking, not able to function, had less PTSD symptoms in the 6-month follow-up than the people who had lower levels of cortisol. And they found that this was true going forward as well. People who had PTSD and CPTSD diagnoses going forward in years after the initial trauma, they had lower resting cortisol levels than people who were normal or who had recovered from PTSD. Wow. So what do we do to get cortisol? What do we do to raise our cortisol levels? We get into fucking fights online. So I have experienced this personally. I have CPTSD. I'm traumatized as fuck. Lots of horrible things have happened to me, both on an acute basis and a chronic basis, right? I've had the domestic violence thing. I've also had like emergency situations. My house burned down. So I've got both. I find that if I go to a fucking riot and I hang out with the people on the front line who are taunting the police, and I get up in a police officer's face and I say, your children are ashamed of you, they're making videos about you on TikTok, I feel so much better for the next 3 weeks. I feel normal. I feel good. I'm less depressed. I'm more functional. I don't have to sleep as much. I have an appetite. And as my level of cortisol from being just completely stressed out at the protest starts to go down over the next few weeks, I feel worse and worse and worse until I get back to my baseline. So the same effect is experienced by people who are starting fights or, on a longer term basis, like associating themselves with moral crusades online. They are stimming. This is a form of stimming. It's just like hitting your head on a wall, using a fidget spinner, jiggling your leg. Same shit. You are getting physiological feedback from this that makes you feel better, makes you feel normal. And that's why you get that sort of triumphant feeling when you are winning a fight on the internet. So if you go back to your Telegram channel and you're like, I showed that fucking tranny, I got them banned for saying that children should not be allowed at Pride, you feel so good from that. You feel normal. And you feel like you are recovering from whatever trauma that you had that caused you to be this way in the first place. So there you go. It's cortisol-seeking behavior. I don't want to medicalize every single person who's doing this kind of thing, but for a lot of people, particularly those on Tumblr who are like, yeah, I had a shitty childhood, you think to yourself, that person should know better. But the physiological feedback that they are getting from doing this kind of thing is making them feel better. It's making them feel recovered. And it might actually physically be treating the illness that they're struggling with. So
Jesus Christ.
Yep.
I kind of want to like synthesize that a little bit, because I don't think that these two things are necessarily mutually exclusive.
No, definitely not.
Between class and these other sort of social issues of trauma. Because I also had an incredibly shitty childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And I also grew up in a very abusive household. And I don't do this shit.
No.
You know, so you know,
but I will point out, Lana, you are an online fighter as well. You do get into fights on it. See?
Right. So what I want to get at, what I get at is that I'm not saying that I don't indulge in these sorts of behaviors on a certain level. What I'm saying is that the political orientation of those of those battles that I might get myself into.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm not somebody who generally likes to get into a lot of like interpersonal drama. Like, I don't like to be a hot mess and, you know, a kind of somebody who alienates themselves from all of their friends type of person.
Oh God, no. Yeah.
But I'll get on my high horse about certain things because, you know, that stress spikes and I just have that momentum and I just go for it and it feels like cathartic.
Yeah.
But I do think that there is, you know, like, I grew up in a pretty much firmly middle class to when my, you know, dad eventually left, it became lower middle class because it became, I mean, my mom was always pretty much the primary breadwinner, but like, you know, it became very much that after a certain period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's not like I was dirt poor, but, you know, it was a kind of a complicated situation.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a somewhat precarious situation. And so, like, I can empathize with that.
Mm-hmm.
However, I do think that if you grow up in a certain ideological environment, which is going to be informed by your material conditions, whether you realize it or not,
Mm-hmm.
And you are also dealing with trauma that is untreated,
Mm-hmm.
Which I think most of us in this society are,
Mm-hmm.
and you get that sort of whiff of a feeling of power from putting people in their place.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I think the other aspect of this, too, that is extremely important is the fact that a lot of the people who are doing this are very detached from queer history.
Oh, yeah.
Part of that is the AIDS crisis, but part of that is also social atomization.
And it's TERF shit, too, because TERFs have...
It's TERF shit.
It's tied in with right-wing.
I mean, I think that the Kink It Pride shit did definitely start as COINTELPRO, but TERFs have absorbed it completely unironically. The same way that they observe queer is a slur is another TERF thing.
It's why it's only worked on young people and people who already have an agenda. Those are the only two people that this stuff gets through to. People who don't know better and people who see that they can weaponize it.
I mean,
specifically people, I think, who don't know better, but also they don't realize that even if they're in a relatively, like, if their class position allows them to care about things like respectability, or if that's something that they internalize as a value, they don't realize how quickly that can go away for them and how dangerous things can get.
Totally.
And like we know that because we saw that happen with the Weimar Republic. So, which was not like people talk about it like it was gay utopia, and like the reason the Nazis had this backlash was because things were just too accepting. But that's the opposite of true. That's not at all what was happening. It's actually quite similar to now, which like it was very limited acceptance on a certain basis of social conformity. That was used as a wedge, the same way it's used as a wedge now. And like there's a lot to get into with the construction of gay identity under capitalism, and which is like John D'Amelio's whole thesis, and you know, the idea that like capitalism in many ways like reaffirms the bourgeois family because they still have titles and properties to inherit from one another, but for the working class it tends to actually undermine the material basis of the patriarchal family. So the way that working class people and poor people tend to experience things like family or sexual relationships is a lot different from how upper class people do it. And so that creates a contradiction between the classes that results in struggle. And one of the ways you can see that struggle, the counter-revolutionary element of that struggle is every single time there is a fucking moral panic about gay people.
Where if anyone knows anything about the vast majority of gay people, you'd said rootless and cosmopolitan was a phrase you'd used earlier, Lana. This was the same
Nazi.
This was a phrase Zizek used with regard to trans people. Specifically, they were rootless and cosmopolitan. God love him. Zizek, when he's a bigot, he puts his whole body into it. When he's a racist, he puts his whole body into it. So
I wish he would just talk about movies.
I wish he would just talk about movies too. But that said, where if you actually know anything about tangible things as it relates to queer people, I'm going to go with the states here. Vast majority below the poverty line. Vast majority, not necessarily in coastal cities. Largest concentration of queer people, the South, the Southeast, in particular the Deep South, because it's one of the few places where people still have unprotected sex in mass quantities and by virtue create a shit ton of people still. And it's just an outcome where a bunch of people are concentrated in one place. It's
excess
also
population.
where the most repression happens.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Is that's the great irony, is that if you claim to love people and the ideology behind a lot of the people who think they're sort of reasserting like a traditional patriarchal mode, what they're actually doing is reasserting basically what we've done is we've created a gender hierarchy of based on a division of labor based on one's relationship to reproduction through patriarchy, which arises out of slave societies and the accumulation of private property. And then capitalism gets grafted on top of that, where on top of the landlord class, which is like the feudal classes, on top of that, you get the merchant class, which figures out how to accumulates enough money to make its money make money. And that's where capitalism comes from. And capitalism just sort of takes these existing divisions of labor and industrializes them. So what these sort of these extreme right wingers, these fascists, whatever, are really doing, they think they're reasserting a tradition. What they're actually doing is reasserting the sort of breeding and culling logic of capitalism, that humans are basically breeding stock, and that they need to be formally controlled in how they go about doing that, whether it's getting rid of access to reproductive rights and social services, to force people to reproduce so that they can die faster and work harder at lower rates of to lower their standard of living and also their longevity.
Yeah.
Or
excess
also
population. That's what
excess
they want.
population. So it's or if you, in some cases you have the opposite, you have a reserve army of labor, where you have people who are basically considered to be in excess and they have to be culled. And so that in those cases, it's okay to, concentrate, imprison, murder, whatever, let them die from COVID.
Labor exploit, you work people until they die because there's always more of them. Yeah.
So it's it's very ideological, but it's a very systematic thing too. And a lot of these, that's the id of capitalism expressing itself through that particular sort of petty bourgeois ideology.
I almost sort of think though that capital sort of even flattens that. Like the sort of right-wing ideology is just sort of a way to contextualize it and feel some type of way about it. But quite literally, mass industrialization, as it relates to those things. So one of the biggest outcomes of massive industrialization is the plastic platelet problem, where basically each successive year on this massive, horrifying downward arc, sperm rates are just shooting downward to the point where we may tangibly, if not in my lifetime, my nieces and nephews' lifetimes, we may be looking at some children of men type shit insofar as birth rates. And it doesn't seem especially great. I want to say in good faith that there are probably solutions, but I'm also sort of reminded by capital essentially cutting off its own nose to spite its face, and levels of survival that a lot of these people with massive amounts of resources seem to be accumulating all at the same time right now, and seem to really be hammering down on a social right-wing project to act as a answer to neoliberalism. Like, you have all of these overarching projects, and I hate to sound like a conspiracy nut, but it all seems like it's going somewhere that I don't want to fucking be.
I mean, yeah, whatever capitalism resolves itself into, if it's not a, if there isn't a mass movement to change it into something better, like, who the fuck knows, right? Like, we might be looking at fucking corporate city states or some shit like that. Who knows?
I mean, it's on the table. It's also, not to constantly be the doomsayer, but like, it almost sort of seems like like doing it to that extent is negating the possibility for that, because it's such a flattening force.
I mean, I've seen some reports about this. I don't know how seriously to take it. Generally, when something has birth rate in the title, I glaze over and don't give a fuck. Because
especially if it's birth rates and then also NATO, it's like, white great replacement theory.
It's almost always replacement theory, and frankly, there are more people on the planet now than there have literally ever been in history, so I'm not that worried about it.
I mean, fair, but I don't like it as a sort of long-term existential threat. I'm not a eugenics person,
Having plastics in the environment is generally not good. Even if ignoring the sperm count stuff.
No, yeah, just what percentage
generally quite bad for you.
What percentage of human will be plastic in X amount of years?
That's my pet theory about what Morgellons syndrome is.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know this.
Yeah, well, okay, Morgellons syndrome is fake. It's
okay.
It's one of those internet fringe diagnoses, self-diagnoses that people kind of psych themselves into believing that they have. I have some tolerance for that kind of stuff and have become more tolerant of it over time as I've gotten older, and I've seen a lot of diagnoses that used to be extremely fringe brought into the medical mainstream. Chronic fatigue syndrome is a really good example. When I was a kid, it was considered like a joke diagnosis, and now people are finally starting to take it seriously. And since people who have long haul COVID are all going to have chronic fatigue syndrome, give me $50 on this one if you want to bet me in like a year. I think that we're going to finally see some like really good research about it. Anyway, Morgellons syndrome is interesting because people who think that they have it believe that they have fibers growing out of their skin. So there's this sort of classic idea of like bodily compromise and impurity. Yeah, it's a body horror diagnosis, and everybody who Carter sort of reads the description of it understands, I think, on a visceral level, oh yeah, that does sound really bad. If I thought I had that, I would be crazy about it too. But the thing that we're learning with microplastics is that, yeah, little tiny plastic fibers do in fact get everywhere. They get inside fish, they get inside mammals, they get inside every single thing that we have pulled out of the ocean. It's in every body of water. So yeah, if in the same way, I would not be totally surprised if someone dragged a Bigfoot out of the woods. I would not be totally surprised if we started seeing slightly more serious attention being paid to people with who claim they have Morgellons syndrome, who are really just like full of fucking plastic, who have, plastic fibers either stuck in their skin from their environment or, something else going on. So, whenever I see something that like doesn't have a good explanation, I always am kind of on the lookout from that point on to see if there is an explanation that's going to pop up later. And I would not be surprised if we see microplastic tissue infiltration as a diagnosis going forward. I would not be surprised.
Yeah, no, I mean, like there's so much more I'm afraid of than whatever it's going to do to the sperm count, because that is a secondary concern from like what our environment, like the planet is becoming uninhabitable.
That's true.
Yep. Like, that's the bigger 30 years from now concern. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course like a cleanup project would include cleaning up all the shitty microplastics, but like there's the bigger issue of climate change, which is going to wipe out way more people in the long run.
Fair.
Yeah,
So-
it killed thousands of people in Texas a few months ago. Like
Yes.
thousands and thousands of people died because of climate
people
change.
are dying in India just from heat waves every year.
Yeah.
Just people drop dead in the fields. Like, it's,
Yeah.
and this is a much bigger issue, and I feel like the particular, I'm not saying that the sperm count story is, I haven't looked into it enough to know, but I'm not saying it's like scientifically wrong, because it might very well be correct.
It is definitely happening, and it is.
Yeah, sure.
But
it's the specific focus on it that I find very suspect.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Because the whole purpose of focusing on birth rates at all, especially because Americans in particular, I think largely Westerners, are like insecure about being a minority in the world, and that's a lot of where the great white replacement anxiety is coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you see stories like that with the hyper-specific focus on reproduction, the whole point is to make you worry that there aren't enough of you. And like, oh, we're gonna... But the purpose of that is because there's a mass proletarianization. There's a bunch of people being dropped into that reserve army of labor right now. And the gig economy has totally broken up any like semblance of union membership.
Mm-hmm.
So what you were seeing is the return of old style super hyper exploitative capitalism, which means, buddy, time to reproduce and die early.
Yeah, that's what it used to be.
I think
all
also
about in
we're
the old
seeing
days.
like
It's the
total
same
lack
time that
of class mobility.
Yeah. It's what it is now in the colonies.
Yeah. And the only way to be class mobile now is to become a landlord. You cannot be class mobile anymore just having a career, because there's no such thing as a career anymore. You cannot climb out of poverty that way. If you get a bunch of money by some chance, you have two ways to be class mobile with it. You can invest it in a stock market, which is completely unethical, or you can become a landlord, which is completely unethical. So, I'm not saying that people don't have a choice, because I don't think that's true. And if I got a bunch of money, I would definitely not become a landlord. But if there is any class mobility at all, it is related to immoral acts. Like you just, to a certain extent, you can't even become not impoverished anymore without doing something immoral.
Yeah, it's basically a lifeline for people to get out of like the sinking ship, right? Like,
Yep.
oh, you can make yourself into one of the good ones.
Yeah, by climbing over people who are drowning.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only way to do it. I've never gotten a straight answer from my leftist housing advocate friends when I ask them, I'm sorry, don't we have like millions of empty units who are just being sat on by like Airbnb or like empty office units and stuff like that?
Or HUD.
Why?
Or HUD.
Or HUD. Why are we building more housing units? Why are we bulldozing houses and building these ugly ass box apartments when we have empty units? And no one has ever given me a satisfactory explanation. I keep asking. So I don't know. But these are smart people that I respect who are working on this issue. I just wish somebody would explain to me why the issue isn't
housing is a commodity. That's
I
the
was
reason.
about to say, because there's a business behind housing too.
Yeah.
Like people
housing
get paid
needs
to build
be
shit.
taken off the market.
Yeah.
Completely. It needs to be taken off the market, and it needs to be treated like you would treat a public utility.
Yeah, then you would really have the same buildings forever.
Yeah, and you can maintain them, and you could easily house everybody.
Speaking of corporate city-states, that already happened. I live in Seattle. It is a corporate city-state.
Eliza and I can both report from the Amazon-owned town where the old buildings go down and the boxes go up.
Yeah,
that's awesome. You are so that means you have rent control, right?
In that rent is controlled.
I have rent control because the elevator in my building's broken, so they can't raise my rent.
That's what's up.
That's a kind of rent control.
If you will.
Sometimes when I want to hurt myself, like I feel like the self-harm impulse, I will go on websites that will compare cost of living. And I type in just random metropolitan areas, New York City, Berlin, Prague, versus Seattle. Seattle's more expensive than anywhere. It's more expensive than anywhere. And
I was San Francisco and Seattle.
Yeah,
I heard it. I heard it.
The West Coast, baby.
I heard it.
It did. I actually had not heard that, and that makes me scared. But otherwise, it's always been up there.
We absolutely beat New York. Yeah,
it's rapidly becoming unlivable in Montreal, and because of the same process that happened in Seattle and happened in San Francisco and happened in Toronto, it's happening here. We're watching it happen. I see it happen on my street. I'm seeing renovations happen.
It's maybe not. Yeah, it's pretty much global.
Yeah,
but
and it intensified during the pandemic. It intensified because landlords figured out a way of boosting up the vacancy rate. Doesn't matter what controls are in place. Doesn't matter what the law is. The balance of power is with them, and the market dictates that this is the way for them to make money.
Yeah.
So take housing off the market entirely.
I mean, yeah, that you won't hear any disagreements here. And so in as much as mentioning birth rates earlier, I guess it was largely kind of part of this overarching bit we're talking about here, in as much as sort of capital almost sort of existing despite ideology, in that the tendencies to squeeze out every last fucking drop leads to sort of the squelching and destruction of anything good, anything that you feel nostalgia for or love or remember fondly. It makes, I mean, listen, everything's ephemeral. Everything and everyone you ever know will die, and that's okay. But like the ability for structures, ideas, and these things to be perpetuated to whatever end it might end, and maybe humankind never makes it off world, or whatever, and that's okay. But the larger continuing project, it is so self-defeating in these terms and in these ways. I think it's definitely worth examination, even if it does come off as like a broken record, because we're also sort of having the same discussions over and over again about, well, what's the best way to take care of this? And the refrain is, well, you need to make more money, or you need to fucking go live out in some rural area. That's going to hit them too. And there are more and more people leaving rural areas to have better prospects. But then those prospects are in areas with rapidly rising rents that people can't fucking
a lot of those people
moved
to fucking Seattle. They moved to fucking Seattle because they're like, oh, this is the gay city. It'll be fine. That's why I have that huge thread on Twitter. I'm like, do not move here. Do not move here. Listen to me. Listen to everyone else.
Seattle is like,
there's like very few skill sets that are compatible. Like if you're trans and you code, fucking go for it. You'll get a job straight. Like, but other than that, like, can't recommend anything. Also, you'll have a job. You'll have a job for a company you most likely don't want to work for.
Yeah,
even if it pays good.
Yeah, it's going to pay good at first. And then they're going to start making some structural readjustments.
Yep.
Because they're going to figure out it's not that profitable to pay people well. And they're going to start doing fucky things with your contract. And they're going to use the fact that they hire, a diverse workforce as a way to, launder the reputation. And then they're going to use it to make you feel like you have some obligation to them because they've, so graciously given you a job, and who else is going to hire you? So that's what these companies, and then they fold within a year anyway, a lot of them.
Yep. You nailed it.
And I mean, even then there's a ceiling on that. If you look at everything that has happened at Google, one of the biggest sort of figureheads of like diversity, diverse workforce, all of that stuff, they of course did the James Damore thing where they fired the guy for, I don't know, trying to take his fucking skull measuring tools into work and just jangle it over the heads of women and anyone else, and do his bell curve bullshit. But then also they would also go on to fire trans people that tried to unionize within the company, and any person of color that had serious qualms with the with the ethics of the company as it related to, I don't know, surveillance and
Yeah.
specifically the algorithms used within Google's various things such as YouTube, etc. It's 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 all about a public posture, and you as a diverse person, or someone whose identity is sought specifically because you are other. You are not what eats, you are what is being eaten, which I think a lot of people need to understand when it comes to the conversation around identity, where people solely think of it as a cudgel to be wielded against others, which comes off more and more hollow when you think of like Peter Thiel and fucking Tim Apple specifically. Like, these are two gay men that have done nothing but undermine gay and queer people globally in ways we will never be able to undo in decades, let
Right,
alone
yeah.
in our day-to-day lives.
Like the way that's like, you know how I talked about how like rich people experience the family very differently from like poor people.
Mhm.
Like the politics of being queer when you're Tim Apple are a lot different than if you're like a homeless sex worker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're worlds apart.
Yes.
No, it's the same.
Yeah.
Happy Pride.
Happy Pride.
You buy that homeless sex worker can buy a $40 fucking trans flag Apple thing and
I was
try to
about
hook
to
up with
say.
someone on Grindr, and it's been removed from your fucking phone.
Yeah, and also you're like the way that you make money has been like unilaterally Peter Thiel has decided that he's going to like not allow you to accept payments using his services because he wants to clean up the platform.
Yeah.
So,
And if
you
you
know,
want to, if you're above board and you want to use your legal name, you have to get court orders and shit to do it, because there's no reasonable way to do it normally with fucking PayPal.
yeah, or the one I think about all the time actually is the fact that it was Jeff Bezos who owns Twitch.
Yeah.
So I'm basically an Amazon contractor.
Mhm.
That's everyone's future, isn't it?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. That's Twitch, baby.
Yeah, so it's like I said, like the death of small publications, the death of small artists, and then all of it gets taken over by like Jeff or Tim or whoever. Like our new God Kings are guys named Jeff and Tim. Which just it's pathetic.
They wear polo shirts.
Oh my
Yeah,
fucking lord.
they wear board shorts. Like we're ruled by
Oh,
guys who
yeah.
wear board shorts. So so Jeff Bezos was actually the guy who put his thumb on the scale for Sesta Fosta to get it passed. And the reason why he did that is because he had recently acquired Twitch and he wanted to undercut streaming competition, which mostly is for like cam girls, pornography.
Yeah, everything you do on Twitch, the bit system, the chat system, the mod system, that whole cloth, even before it was Justin.tv, that had existed.
Right.
Like almost 10 years earlier on fucking Chatterbait.
A certain type of people figured that tech out way earlier.
And that's like the history of modern technology, is that it gets, popularized through the sharing of erotica and porn.
Absolutely.
And then it gets, absorbed into the more mainstream culture, and all of that initial capital accumulation like kind of gets whitewashed away.
Yeah.
That's gentrification.
Yeah, that's it. That's the mindset. It's the same mentality.
I was trying to
cleaning up the neighborhood.
Everyone who is trying to get along on Twitch and has noticed that it is now, due to the ads and the fucking TOS, it is now impossible to get new followers on Twitch. We are all bringing in our audiences from other socials, right? Like you bring your audience in from Twitter or whatever. Okay, I think that we need to start looking into hosting our own streams again. To that end, I'm starting to look at a piece of software called Owncast, which is open source, I think. And it's just, it's Twitch, but without the Twitch wrapper, because we do not need the Twitch wrapper. And the other thing is, I don't need fucking 1080 at 60 FPS. I really don't.
No.
And
I generally don't either.
I don't have more people than like 50 in my chat room at any one time either. So for the smaller creators, something like Owncast, that's just, you run it on either stream it directly from your own connection because you're fucking paying for it, right? Or streaming it from an actual server that you rent. That's gonna you are gonna save so much money in not paying Twitch their fucking 20% or 50% or whatever, that once you can make the tipping point there, it's gonna be completely sustainable.
Yeah, I mean, it's like possibly one solution, although my worry is that eventually, like, because this will happen with open source, is that it will get sold once it reaches a certain like level of saturation, like once there are enough users.
But you can't ever use anything expecting it to last.
No, of course not. but like then like the bigger question for me is, even if I like diversify my use of platforms, and that might be a potential short-term solution, and I think it could be really useful, especially for certain types of creators. But I also think that like this big juggernaut is like here, and it's probably, I mean, there is an outside chance that like Twitch could fold one day. It's one of their, I think it's one of their loss leaders, honestly.
Yeah,
they're actually really bad at like Amazon and Twitch in particular.
There's no way it makes money. Like no shot.
I'm sure it's a loss leader.
Yeah, it's AWS funded, much like a lot of Amazon.
But it doesn't matter for Jeff because it's like free ad money, and it also is a way of it monopolizes an industry. And he makes most of his like 90% of, not 90%, that's a good exaggeration, but he makes most of his earnings from AWS anyway.
Yeah,
so it doesn't matter.
I mean,
if people don't know that, like Amazon is a company, like even retail is like a smidge of what Amazon rakes in off of their web services.
Right. I'm not saying that people should switch to something like Owncast or whatever else other stuff to stick it to Amazon, because you literally can't stick it to Amazon.
Yeah.
The only reason to switch to something like that is all of my entire audience is coming off of Twitter anyway. They're not coming from Twitch.
Sure.
So I don't need any of Twitch's infrastructure whatsoever. And the way that they have made it so impossible to get new audience members, because they will show you fucking 10 ads in a row every time you switch channels. So people can't just channel hop anymore and find new streamers. So they're not doing it anymore. I've been keeping track of the Twitch sub on Reddit, and people are just like, yeah, I don't follow new streamers anymore because I can't. They punish me every time I change the channel. And people are not literate enough to use something like alternative Twitch browsers. So if all of those things are true and I'm not benefiting from being hosted by Twitch, then I'll just do my own thing. And I've had to do this over and over again because I started live streaming on the site that was called livestream.com. And I was and then I was on Justin TV, and then I was on Ustream, and then I've been doing this for almost 15 years. So I think at this point, I've been doing this for so long that I just already have my shit packed and ready to go. It's like when you move a lot, you never unpack, you're just ready to go. So that's...
I totally, I definitely understand that as a, like a way of dealing with the fallout, like it's like a good mechanism for dealing with that on a personal level. So my... and I'm not actually saying that like that's a bad idea. I think for somebody like you who's getting most of your viewers from your other social media that you use, or for smaller creators, I think that is potentially a very good idea for them, at least in the short term. And becoming more literate in how to use the internet is always literacy is a good thing. We like it's Reading Rainbow Hour over here, so being aware of these tools and how they're being used and how they're being used against you is a good thing, and how to take advantage of them, to help yourself and others the most. Then yeah, of course, I think it absolutely makes sense. But like what I guess I'm getting at is that I don't see the actual larger dynamic changing unless something challenges that hegemony, which of course,
Yeah.
like the institutional power for that to happen does like not exist, and we have to like build it back up from nothing, basically.
This is why I advocate terrorism.
Yeah, constantly. Yeah, no.
I mean, I joke. I'm not actually advocating terrorism. Do not do terrorism and blame it on the podcast. But seriously, like, that's it. It's we have run out of options. Guerrilla warfare is what's left.
Yeah,
So,
no, you
mass
definitely
public mobilization is what we have to do. It's
you
like the only
definitely
thing we have.
obviously you need the death of liberal democracy. I think it was the last thing that me and Jake we need to check in with Ramon at some point to ask when that pod is going up. But
it's been a minute, but I know he's working, so
he's working. I'm not going to bug the guy about it. Obviously,
I mean,
it's like cool to be
I
on
always
there.
go back to the material conditions, right? Like, what are the material conditions? Okay, well, here in Seattle, one of the material conditions is that we have been protesting against the fucking youth jail, which has been being built for years now. It's literally just a place to cage children. So one of the big marches last summer, Antifa blew it up. They went to the building site in Black Bloc, and like 30 people swarmed out of the march, all in black. They had their fucking explosives and their accelerants with them, and they blew up the job site. It exploded. There was a fucking fireball. And guess what? They still haven't built that fucking youth jail. Great job, guys.
I mean, the thing is, I mean, that does work. And, you know, again, this is not advocating one thing or another.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't there. I didn't see shit.
I personally do think it's cool whenever bad things happen to horrible people, and has been my constant refrain. But yeah, this shit doesn't happen without fundamental changes or the destruction of liberal democracy. That said, I think these larger overarching points. I think it's been a great part of your voix. I guess I don't know if I'm saying that right. In your work, and it's been a consistent source of your criticism that I've really come to enjoy over the years. It's always good reading a new Lana thing. To that end, I was gonna ask, are the twitch.tv / the Freak Museum, yes, is your Twitch stream?
That's it.
Do you have any other projects or anything you're cooking in the kitchen at the moment?
I actually just recently got a little bit of a writing gig from this small little artsy fartsy, very cool looking new publication called Funland. So I'm gonna be writing.
I've heard about this one.
So I'm gonna be. It's sort of like very in the preliminary stages right now, like planning stage type of thing. But I'm hoping to maybe talk to the Catamites.
Ooh, hell
and
yeah!
I was kind of hoping to talk to him about like the kind of like the so I'm basically combining two pitches where I wanted to kind of talk to him about like drawing on parodying but also kind of doing homage of older games, because a lot of his games what he'll do is he'll like isolate a mechanic from an older like a older game or an older like a set of conventions from a genre of games that you don't really see much anymore, that used to be something that you might see more on like a Super Nintendo game, you know. Something kind of like from the early 90s, early 80s, or even Atari stuff. He did a kind of parody of multi-cart games called 50 Short Games.
Oh wow.
So he does that kind of thing, and I wanted to talk to him because he's written a lot about like trying to make games as a hobbyist, as a form of expression and experimentation in a with like the commercial pressures of the industry. But also he's written a lot about like the cannibalization of like the history of games, and like the way that a lot of these like older like oddball experiments and sort of like all of the weird kinks of older games have been kind of ironed out through the institution of like a canon, like an official canon, which is pretty much entirely determined by corporations.
Yeah, your wikis, etc.
Yeah, and how that can like affect our idea of like art and public ownership. And so I like really want to go into like preservation and how, you know, IP law, which is something I've written about in the past. Like I wrote about this for Passage, that IP law is this sort of like legal cudgel that corporations can use to assert artificially the value of a product that can be endlessly reproduced. So when like you pay for streaming, for example, like you're not paying for the value of the commodity that is the like the movie. Like the movie's not really worth anything. What you're paying for is access. That's what's actually being sold to you, and it's a form of rent.
It's a licensing agreement.
Yeah. So it's a form of ground rent. And like a lot of culture, like, and we just mentioned AWS, right? So a lot of culture now depends on this sort of private ownership, in which private actors can decide whether or not to release things from vaults or let things depreciate. Of course, I'm sure you know that like a lot of old movies, for the very same reasons that I'm talking about with games, actually just completely either they burned or just were completely destroyed, like the original reels, and were never preserved.
Or they rot.
They rot. This has happened with old jazz tapes. A lot of stuff, it doesn't get archived, it doesn't get digitized, or it gets deleted. This has happened with games. They've just straight up gotten deleted. Things never really got digitized after, like stuff that was on floppy, where like the magnetism like just died in those disks, and so all of that information, all that data is completely lost. So how maybe talking about how like the lack of like public archiving and preservation, and attack on institutions that do it, whether they're pretty much legal like Internet Archive, or whether they're kind of semi-legal or illegal like abandonware sites, is often just a way of reasserting property rights for monopolies, and how that the fact that so much of our culture depends on the continuing functioning of like private servers basically means that a lot of stuff just gets lost, and that actually impoverishes like our sense of history about this medium and the range of imagination and creative expression that's possible for people to draw on.
Yep.
Goddamn.
I used to do a local, I mean, even something as silly as like a local Magic the Gathering stream where you could, if you were a local player, you could kind of go back and watch yourself on camera the night and like kind of see what you did. It was cool. And the work to archive that was nothing. And so now there's like a whole bunch of people who remember something that they did on stream, and there's no way for them to go get it.
Yeah,
it's just like, yeah.
As I have gotten older, I have learned that like posting shit in multiple places and then also having my own copy in multiple places is so fucking important. I am so glad that at some point I decided to pay for Flickr Pro. You know, like I'm just willing to eat that cost every year when it shows up on the auto renewal, because I have it did a really good job archiving stuff, and all of the other copies of those pictures that I have everywhere else just disappeared. So archiving
like that.
It's one of the reasons your work is so fucking important, because no one has ever heard of a lot of this stuff, and it will, unless it is reiterated, it's gonna disappear.
Yeah. I think you know, as an aside, we are definitely going to have to tackle archivist work with a few different people in the near future as a subject. Because I especially feel this way. We were talking about queer history, like eBay specifically not allowing porn and that. There are some alternatives for auction style sites like that. They don't really have eBay's cultural cachet, but they do exist. But the problem is like a lot of this is also just happening at the payment processor side. Where the ability to literally hit the sites and these various things with the jumper cables of money, you know, it's a larger overarching problem. But I'm glad you're doing work on that subject. So you said Funland and any other places or what have you.
I'm mostly gonna be at Twitch these days. And I'm also doing like art commissions for Patreon as well, because that's I'm a little bit of a illustrator as well.
Oh,
and
nice.
You can really tell that I watched a lot of Mike Judge growing up when you look at my stuff. It's very, very plain. I don't do it on purpose. It's just I'm channeling him. He works through me. He does his acts through my pen.
The touch of Judge.
Yeah. That's right.
The touch of Judge.
I've
been judged.
I put the link in the chat, but I wanted to say definitely subscribe to Lana on Twitch and use Twitch Alternate Player Chrome plugin. It is currently the best solution to take care of a lot of the Twitch problems, including the unbelievable ads that have popped up. So
the ads are fucking awful.
Put a link to that
really...
in the chat so we can put it in the show notes. It's just called Alternate Player for Twitch, and it is a Chrome extension, and it kicks in automatically when you visit any Twitch channel.
I have copied and pasted that.
One real quick, if you could send us out on what is your favorite mushroom?
Oh my god!
Hell yes.
We didn't even talk about mushrooms.
I could talk for another 2.5 hours.
Yeah, that would have to be a whole other pod. We can, that's just a tease, I suppose.
Yeah, you have to pick one.
Lana, we have episode 2.
So hard.
We don't got time for this. Just your favorite mushroom.
Oh my god! Don't put this on me. It's such a big question. You know how many mushrooms there are?
Just give us one.
Tens of thousands of mushrooms.
What about a favorite? A favorite?
Okay.
Yeah.
I really like the varnished polypore suge.
Oh, you heard it here first.
I think Dryad Saddle is really cool because it smells like cucumbers and watermelon.
Ooh.
Mycena Interrupted just looks fucking cool. Jack-o'-lanterns glow in the dark. That's pretty sick.
Yeah, because there's a candle in them, Lana.
Of course, yeah, that's correct. There's a few. There's another one. There's another kind of mycena that also glows in the dark and it looks really cool.
So you've been all listened to working on it today. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in for this great episode featuring Lana Polansky.
Don't let him do this, Michelle. Don't let Ruben get away with this.
Where do you think you live?
I'm gonna be.
Where do you think you live?
What you've done. You don't understand what you've done because now I've gotten into a loop where I'm thinking about all the mushrooms I like.
Oh no, she's in a shroom loop.
I'm in a shroom loop.
She's going shroom mode. Oh no.
I'm shrooming out.
Oh,
we're shrooming out, everyone.
Yeah. No, it's really hard for me to pick a favorite because there so many of them are so lovely.
They're my sons. I can't pick a favorite son. How dare you?
I don't care for the stinkhorn.
You have
the
a
joke.
mushroom.
The joke of mushrooms.
End it there.